across the Far East, with temperatures in single figures. The East Midlands starts Sunday rather cloudy, perhaps with some mist and fog patches, particularly across Lincolnshire, with this lifting into low cloud during the morning, a few sunny spells in the far west. It's a rather cloudy start across much of East Anglia, with showery outbreaks of light rain and drizzle slowly clearing eastwards, temperatures reaching into the low to mid-teens later. It's a wet start across the south and east of the country, with outbreaks of heavy rain slowly easing eastwards during the morning, drier and brighter the further west you go. The rain and cloud across the southeast will clear as a band of blustery showers push in from the west. And that's how the weather is shaping up during tomorrow morning.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio
and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
It's 8 o'clock and welcome to the very first edition of Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In. It might be bonfire night, but we've got fireworks for 3 hours. In a historic milestone for the channel, the first hour of the programme is dedicated to your video calls. It's the People's Hour, and tonight the topics we will be debating are: Should fireworks be banned? Should teachers date ex-pupils? And have we lost the art of good neighbouring? We'll introduce our viewers in just a moment, but first, the headlines with Ray Addison.
Thanks, Mark. Here's the latest from the GB newsroom. The Immigration Minister has condemned what he's calling unacceptable levels of violence at a London immigration centre. Robert Jenrick said those responsible will be held to account and swiftly removed from the country. His comments come after detainees with weapons caused a disturbance during a power outage this morning. No one was injured in the incident at Harmondsworth Immigration Centre in Heathrow. Mr Jenrick also confirmed that detainees are being transferred to other secure facilities while engineers repair any damage. The firebombing of an immigration processing centre in Dover was motivated by an extreme right-wing terrorist ideology. That's according to police. Counter-terrorism officers have recovered digital media devices as part of their investigation. Andrew Leake from High Wycombe is believed to have thrown up to 3 incendiary devices at the centre last weekend. However, there were no major injuries. The 66-year-old was later found dead by police at a nearby petrol station. The United Nations chief says the world is doomed unless a historic pact is signed between rich and poor countries. The warning from Antonio Guterres comes ahead of the COP27 summit next week. Wealthy nations have already promised to find almost £88 billion a year to help poor nations to tackle climate change. The scheme was originally meant to start in 2020. It's now expected to happen next year. A series of rail strikes, which were due to start today, have been called off, but the government warns there'll still be significant disruption over the next few days. The RMT stopped the walkout after securing a pay offer, which they're now negotiating. Not everyone supports the move. Former Assistant General Secretary at the RMT, Steve Headley, told GB News members are furious as they had no say.
We're in a situation where the strike's been called off and the members don't know why. And the explanations being given at the minute don't make sense. Intensive negotiations, well, what were they doing before? If there's a deal on the table, let the members have a look at it. The members will soon say yes or no.
Thousands have marched in central London calling for a general election due to issues including the rising cost of living. The Britain is Broken protest saw a coalition of trade unions and community organisations marching from Embankment to Trafalgar Square. Organised by the People's Assembly, former Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn was among the speakers, while protesters accused the government of being not fit for purpose. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister has described inflation as the #1 enemy and vowed to rebuild trust in the government. We're on TV, online and on DAB+ radio. This is GB News, the People's Channel. Back now to Mark Dolan.
Welcome to the very first edition of Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In a historic milestone for the channel, the first hour of this programme is dedicated to your video calls. It's the People's Hour, and tonight the topics we'll be debating are: should fireworks be banned? Should teachers date ex-pupils? And have we lost the art of good neighbouring? Tackling those topics are Sue in Cheshire, Francis in Salisbury, and Alan from North Hampshire. We're also going to speak to Andrew, who's calling in from Bruges in Belgium. Has he had his muscles? Addick in Kent. And last but not least, another Andrew, Andrew II, all the way up in the north of England. Brilliant stuff. And look at those shades. Now, my Saturday sidekick for the first hour of the programme is broadcasting and Fleet Street legend and a good friend of mine. We've known each other for 20 years. It's Mike Porky Parry. After 9, in my big opinion, why mental health has become a cult, a religion and an industry. Whatever happened to the stiff upper lip? In the big question, after an aristocrat bans a boyfriend from a top society party, are unmarried people second-class citizens? Plus, does the world need Donald Trump back in the White House? We'll go live to Hollywood, California. And the queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield. Also after 9 in the news agenda with my panel, are dating apps dangerous? We'll have to ask Porky about that one. And what is your most cherished item? That after King Charles revealed he doesn't travel anywhere without his childhood bear. Plus, Sunday's papers live and uninterrupted from 10:30, and we'll give you a sneak preview 10 minutes earlier than everyone else at 10:20 with a top Fleet Street journalist giving us the inside track tonight, Paul Connew. And in my take at 10, woke millionaire hypocrite Gary Neville gets a taste of his own medicine. Find out why straight after the 10 p.m. headlines. Now, I want to hear from you throughout the show, including during the People's Hour. Mark at gbnews.uk. We don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. This is Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In. So put something cold and fizzy in the fridge, or fire up the kettle and let's have a night to remember. Your video calls in just a moment, but first, my look back at the week in Dolan's diary. What a week it's been. Suella Braverman, a Home Secretary leakier than the hull of the Titanic, addressed Parliament and admitted that she used private emails whilst conducting sensitive government business. I think it just shows how modern she is, taking advantage of all of these new ways of communicating. Perhaps she hands down orders to police chiefs via WhatsApp. Maybe she pursues counter-terrorism policies on Instagram. I've got no doubt at some point she'll share the nuclear codes on TikTok. Just think of the viral videos. Now, she's had her critics, but if you ask me, Braverman has annoyed all of the right people this week. It seems the reason why many in the media and on the opposition benches can't stand her is because she's serious about tackling illegal immigration. What a novelty to have a Conservative government that doesn't actually want an open borders policy. Tackling that issue alone is enough to win the Tories the next election. Hang in there, Suella. Oh, and by the way, I've just followed you on Snapchat. Meanwhile, the halo has slipped for Dishy Rishi, and it's not only his trousers that have come up short. I mean, look, how much money has that man got? Get rid of the strap, Faye. Let's have a look at those trousers. Blimey, it's like he's back at school. Now, notwithstanding a strong first week in which he edged ahead of Keir Starmer in terms of who would be our best Prime Minister according to polls, in the spirit of his predecessor Liz Truss, our Prime Minister, for this week at least, has performed a U-turn on attending COP27. Now he's going. Did he do the U-turn in his red Kia? There it is, outside Sainsbury's. There's Rishi being an ordinary person. By caving into the net zero agenda by his presence there, unlike Braverman, Sunak is unfortunately pleasing all of the wrong people. Net zero extremists who are happy to bankrupt the country on flaky renewables, whilst America, India, China and Brazil burn fossil fuels for fun. To be fair, I've enjoyed Sunak's first week in power because, in my view, the messaging has been brilliant. Cracking down on woke policing, changing the law to protect women and giving legal primacy to biological sex rather than self-identified gender. And we've heard some tough words on the aforementioned migrant crossings. But it would have been wonderful if Sunak had snubbed Bill Gates and Tony Blair in Egypt. And what better excuse than he's at home fixing our broken economy. Rishi, it's important to remember that the public will not accept the virtue-signalling green agenda if it means we wreck the economy and destroy the British way of life. Mark my words, Rishi. Go woke, no vote. Scores of jobs are leaving BBC local radio, which means that with syndicated programmes, they will all sound the same. Blimey, didn't they already? No, wait, I think BBC Radio Suffolk was pro-Brexit. Many BBC lifers have been in uproar at the end of what has been a gravy train for them. Despite their loud protests, local DJs have complained that no one's listening to us. I think you'll find that was the problem all along. Disgraced ex-Health Secretary Matt Hancock is to enter the jungle. I feel sorry for the snakes and spiders who have got to spend 3 weeks in the company of that reptile. To be honest, I think he'll do fine with the Bush Tucker trials. When he climbs into a glass box filled with rats, they'll probably take one look at him and scarper. Tech entrepreneur Elon Musk has been ruffling feathers following his purchase of social media giant Twitter, threatening to charge $8 for people who want to stay on the platform. I think he's missing a trick. Twitter is now such a cesspool of bitterness and vitriol, people would probably pay twice that just to be off it. And last but not least, the aforementioned Suella Braverman, who upset many commentators by saying that Britain was being invaded in relation to the migrant crossings in the Channel. With people entering the country illegally, surely invasion is the only word. What are burglars doing when they enter your house in the dead of night? Popping in for a cup of tea? She's right to use that word because that's how most right-minded Brits feel. There is a positive, however, to this so-called invasion. There's been a lot more hot Albanian men popping up on my Tinder recently. Every cloud. And that is Dolan's diary. Someone else that popped up on my Tinder this week is the broadcasting and Fleet Street legend Mike Porky Parry. Mike, great to have you in the studio.
And great to see you, Mark. Can I say what an honour it is to be here on this historic night? You are once again making waves in the broadcasting world, and for me to be here with you to ride those waves is an honour.
Making history with Mike Porky Parry. Look, Mike, you've been at the launch of so many media brands, including TalkSport, which you co-founded, of course, Talk Radio back in the day.
Yep.
You were a fixture at the Sun newspaper, The Express. You've done every job in the media.
It's very kind of you to say that, Mark. I feel I have a wide breadth of experience in the media, and therefore it's great to be here to discuss what's important and what isn't important with the man in the spotlight tonight, Mr. Mark Dolan.
Now, you look like you're about to give me a karate chop there, so unfortunately I've got no defence mechanism. We'll touch on Elon Musk if we can, because he, in my view, is upsetting all the right people by restoring free speech to the world's biggest social media platform. So many eminent doctors, scientists have been cancelled simply for sharing government statistics about the vaccine, about COVID, you name it. However, he's also fired about 3,000 people overnight.
About 3,500, I think. Half of the 7,000 staff.
You're a Fleet Street veteran. You know about the tic-tac, as Londoners call it, getting the sack. Do you think he's right to handle things in that way?
Well, I think what's happened is he's massively overpaid, hasn't he? 38 billion, and then he's looked at the books. You know, due diligence should be done before you purchase, but I'm not criticising Mr Musk as a businessman. He's obviously very successful. But he's looked at the books, and that's coincided with a lot of people saying, oh, Elon Musk has taken it over, we're going to pull our advertising revenues, OK?
That sounds familiar.
So he's got a bit of a problem. However, you and I think, both share the view that many huge behemoth organisations are massively overstaffed. The NHS being one of them, OK? Government, the civil service being one of them. So I think the first thing you do is you come and you say, we can do this with half the people. I hope that where he leads, others, like the civil service, like the NHS, might follow.
Well, that's right. I mean, there's this boast that the NHS is the biggest employer in Europe. Why is that a source of pride? That means it's terribly inefficient. Well, it shouldn't be the biggest employer in Europe.
No, of course it shouldn't. And I think it's only the Indian railway system and the Chinese Red Army that have got more state employees. That's the sort of figures they are. I think it takes 40% of all government revenues, OK, when you look at what the NHS does and what it sucks in from other departments within government.
£13,000 per household per year.
Yeah, exactly. So I have never been anti-NHS. I've always been for let's have a more efficient NHS.
Bingo.
And successively, health secretaries have never had the courage to say, right, let's have a root and branch look at the NHS and see if we can give the people we serve better value for money.
Suella Braverman, was she right or wrong to call the people entering this country illegally via the Channel crossings an invasion?
Well, she did it for the very right reasons. She wanted it to become a headline. She said it in Parliament at the dispatch box. She is, of course, named Sue Ellen after Sue Ellen from Dallas. You know, her mother, her mother named her Sue Ellen after Dallas.
And I bet she had a drink this week.
I bet she did. And that got merged, Sue Ellen, and to her name now, Sally.
Know that?
Yes, that's absolutely true. The point I'm making is that you're absolutely right.
Who's JR? Rishi?
Yeah, could be JR Rishi. John Ross. No, the point I'm making is that the people who've risen up against her are the very people we need to keep out of the argument. If people want open doors, are they going to pay for them? No, they're not. Has anybody got a better idea than Sue Ellen, or Swellen, or Miss Braverman, to stop these people who come here? They're often referred to in many quarters as refugees. I'm afraid they're not refugees. They are illegal immigrants. 40% of all people who've come here over the last 3 months are men from Albania aged between 21 and 40. They are not refugees. They are illegal immigrants who are coming from Albania to earn 10 times more money a day in this country, often being offered jobs in illegal operations to improve their lives. That's got to stop.
Well, Mike Porky Parry is with me for the hour, but this is the People's Hour, so it's all about your opinions. Coming up very shortly, we're going to hear from 4 viewers, Francis, Andrew, Alum and our second Andrew, and we're going to be asking the following questions. Should fireworks be banned? And should teachers date ex-pupils? Put the kettle on and I'll see you in 3.
From 9, has the focus on mental health now become an obsession, a religion almost? Notwithstanding serious mental health problems, whatever happened to the stiff upper lip? And millionaire woke hypocrite Gary Neville gets his comeuppance on Have I Got News For You? My reaction in my take at 10. It's bonfire night and we've got fireworks for 3 hours. You won't want to miss a second. We're live from 8. See you then.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio,
And online.
we're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's
News channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In and the People's Hour, which is essentially the first hour of this programme every 8 p.m. every Saturday, dedicated to your video calls. And my Saturday sidekick tonight is broadcasting and Fleet Street legend Mike Porky Parry, who I think you'll agree is on fire tonight. Well, speaking of which, tonight is Bonfire Night, a cause of celebration for millions around the country. But with many affected by the noise, the pollution and increased antisocial behaviour, not to mention the impact on animals, and with countless tragic accidents that happen every year involving innocent bystanders, should we ban fireworks? Are they a dangerous nuisance? Let's get to our first call in the People's Hour, and let's go to Bruges in Belgium and Andrew. Hello, Andrew.
Hello there, good evening.
Andrew, great to have you on the show. Do you live in Belgium?
I do. I have done so for about a decade now.
All right. Poor you. Do you want us to rescue you?
No, I mean, it's life is pretty good. Can't complain.
Listen, it's a beautiful country, and Bruges, a lovely historic old city. Will they be having fireworks this weekend, Andrew?
No, it's not something. I mean, firework night is not something that's celebrated here anyway. I mean, the only time we really have fireworks is on New Year's Eve. But even then, it's very highly controlled because you don't. It's restricted by region, so each municipality has a different rule. There are some municipalities where you're not allowed to have them full stop. There are other ones where you can, but with a license in advance. And even when you do buy them and you've had your license, you've had the request approved, when you go and you buy fireworks, they come in grades of 1 to 4, and you have to buy them with your ID card. So you have to give your name and address so they know exactly who's, where you are and what exactly you're buying, because it's very highly controlled.
Well, do you think that's how we should be doing it in the UK? Because there are lots of pensioners who are terrified of these fireworks. It's pretty awful for dogs and cats as well, Andrew.
Well, I don't think they should be available at all, actually. I mean, I think I'm not one to cancel things generally as a rule, but I think this is something that I do feel very strongly about, simply because I kind of consider it as one of those toxic traditions, pretty much like fox hunting or bullfighting. It's something that really has no meaning anymore. I think a lot of people tend to do it even though they don't really know why they're doing it, because, I mean, I don't think that many kids really know the history of Guy Fawkes, for starters. And then, I mean, aside from the, that element, there's also the fact that a lot of people just tend to buy fireworks that sometimes don't conform to British safety standards. And they don't know how to handle them. They can be dangerous. We've already seen in the news tonight that you've got these unruly youths that are mishandling the fireworks and throwing them at people.
Using as a weapon.
Using them as a weapon. And although we go on about, the cats and dogs who are also terrified of these, I mean, we forget about the wild animals as well and the wildlife. I mean, like things like nests that catch fire from falling firework debris, horses in fields that, even from these organised events, I mean, horses get cardiac arrests and die every year from this. So I just think that, owls, for example, also the same. So I think it's just something that really needs to be reviewed and restricted. Here you can only do it between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. in the morning on New Year's Eve, and with a license, that's it. In fact, from 2019 in Bruges, they replaced fireworks with a drone sound and light show instead of fireworks.
There you go. I think that's the way to go. Mike Porky Parry, what do you think about the fact that in this country you can go to the supermarket and essentially buy a rocket?
Yeah, well, that's fine. I don't like legislation. Andrew hinted on that earlier. He said, I'm not trying to ban things. I don't like banners, because when you ban fireworks, you'll then go and ban fox hunting, then you'll ban fishing. I don't like banners. I like people to be able to exercise their own common sense. And the problem is that if you left it to people and said, look, read the instructions on the box that contains your fireworks, your rockets, your fizzy, exploding, what are they called?
The Catherine wheels?
Catherine wheels, thank you very much indeed, and all that, and just behave. Look, I'm not trying to make light of this, but we don't very often get serious problems on bonfire night in this country in terms of injuries, because it's become a culture here. We love it. Youngsters love it. I love it. I say more fireworks, not less.
Andrew, you're a lucky man living in Belgium. Beer, chips and chocolate. That's Porky and my favourite food stuff. Do come and see us again on the People's Hour. Let's head to Salisbury now, and Francis Moore. Hi, Francis. We're just going to get the line to Francis. By the way, Salisbury, famous for its cathedral, and famous for Francis. How are you, Francis?
Well, I'm well with my terrier, who's just hiding underneath me for the moment because he's had a few bangs going off locally, but I look after him. Now, I'm with Porky, actually, on all of this. I hate the cancel culture. Look, the first fireworks we had in this country, as far as I know, in celebration, and I think that's an important point to make. It's in celebration, was 1494. Then we had the gunpowder plot in 1605, and Guy Fawkes is now remembered as the guy on top of the bonfires. And it's a big social occasion. And we should just remember that. It brings a lot of joy. It brings sales of fireworks, which adds to our economy. Sorry, the dog's getting in the way.
What's his name? What's his name, Francis?
He's called Chaos.
Well, chaos by name, chaos by nature. Is he a little stressed out tonight, though, with the fireworks?
Yeah, he gets a bit wimpy, but I look after him, and he's a really good chap. But remember, what is nature's fireworks? Thunder and lightning. So which woke person is going to cancel thunder and lightning? So he gets a bit wimpy about those too.
However, Francis, what about the fact that we're endlessly being berated in relation to pollution and climate change, which is something that is always up for debate? Clearly, fireworks can't be great for the environment. So anyone that goes to a fireworks display or buys a firework is an eco-hypocrite.
No.
Rubbish. Simply rubbish.
All they
basically,
do, Francis, all they do is chuck smoke.
You're going to get me going on a completely different topic.
They chuck debris into the air, Francis. They're very polluting.
Tiny amounts.
Let's bring Porky into this. Porky, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, I am. I mean, a firework puts a tiny amount of gunpowder into the air, less than you get from firing a bullet in a gun. I mean, to say that they pollute the air, Mark, I'm shocked and surprised with you and somewhat disappointed that you want to come up with some spurious argument about yet more environmental pollution from an occasion which Francis has outlined brilliantly. It's gaiety. It's light, it's fizz.
Well, listen, Mike,
it lights up the skies.
Mike,
we should all do it.
Mike Porky Parry, you're gay enough. But the thing is, this is the point I'll make to you, Francis, because I certainly don't sign up to the net zero eco agenda. I don't think we should bankrupt our economy whilst China and America burn fossil fuels for fun. But Francis, let me draw your attention to India, where in their great cities, pollution is so bad that fireworks have been banned on certain nights of the year because if the fireworks go up, the air becomes quite literally unbreathable.
Well, Mark, just reel back a few years. Look at London. And we were burning coal in London, and the smogs were awful.
Pea soupers.
And we moved on. And I think one of the things to learn is that capitalism has taught us to be more efficient in the way that we operate. So I, like you, am not a net zero subscriber. I think we're bankrupting this country. We're bankrupting the world. We're destroying the world on the thesis of scientists who we cannot believe because forecasting, and it is only a forecast, because I've yet to see a single worldwide event as I could put down to climate change. Yes, there is change in climate, but that's a very different point of view. So look, coming back to the point that you asked, which is whether fireworks pollute the UK or any other country, no. And I think we've got to balance it very carefully against people actually having a good time. I literally pick up on what Porky is saying, because we've got to have some fun. We're not having much fun at the moment.
Exactly.
I'm not hearing massive personal firework displays locally because I think people have probably run out of money. But, you know, if you go to central displays, they're a bit anonymous. They do raise, and I think this is an important point, they do raise a lot of money for charity, and I'm very pleased about that. But they're very anonymous. What we need is more social interoperability, if I can get that word out. And one of the things that you may be covering later in your programme is about being good neighbours. And yes, firing fireworks up in the air needs good neighbourly practices, because you shouldn't be intruding on other people, and at least warn them in advance about what you're doing. I was brought up farming, Mark, so I know all about fireworks and animals. And what you have to do is just for an occasion, and if it's a birthday outside the zone, as it were, or another celebration outside the zone, then communicate with neighbours and say what you're going to do. Just don't fire off a firework and let horses get into trouble or sheep get into trouble.
Okay.
You know, it's all about common sense.
A bit of common
and what
sense.
I want is not people banning us, but common sense.
A bit of common sense. Now, Francis, I've got to say, personally, I find fireworks boring. When you've seen one display, you've seen them all. But you know what? I'd quite happily watch you and Chaos for half an hour. It's been a thrill to have you on the show. Come and see us again soon. That is Francis and his gorgeous hound, Chaos. Let's move to our next story. And a religious education teacher has been struck off for getting into an inappropriate relationship with a pupil less than half his age, who he went on to marry and have children with. Gavin Dunsmuir, now 50, was found to have formed a relationship with Megan Reid in 2015 whilst he was employed at Largs Academy in North Ayrshire. The former teacher went on to leave his wife Shona and move in with Miss Reid, now 25, before marrying her last year and having 2 children together. It's important to stress that Miss Reid was an adult and had left the school by the time they formally began their relationship. But is it wrong for teachers to date ex-pupils? Let's go to Andrew, number 2, in Old Harlow in Essex and see what he thinks. Hi, Andrew.
Hello, Mark. Nice to meet you. And
but what? Now, he has just been cut off in his prime. Young Andrew, The broadband's not great over in Essex, let's be honest. We're going to try and reconnect with Andrew very, very shortly. But let me recap this story, which is an RE teacher in Scotland. There's a girl in the school. He knows her. Some say he mentored her. Well, she leaves the school as a grown adult. They begin a relationship. They start dating. They're now married with 2 kids. Is there a problem with that? Can we hook up with Alan, who is in Yateley in North Hampshire? There he is. Alan, lovely to have you on the programme. Did you ever have a soft spot for one of your teachers?
I was a teacher myself, and I think the word that comes into play is professionalism. Now, this teacher didn't do anything illegal. The girl was above young age. She was 17, 18 at the time, and basically what he did was professional misconduct, but nothing illegal. Maybe morally illegal, but that's the point. And they've gone their individual ways. They've got married. They've had a family. You can't basically condemn them for love.
And do you think that the fact that they've now married and had 2 children validates their union, Alan, that it was clearly more than a fling, and that this woman, as a grown adult, has consented to the relationship by walking down the aisle with this man?
Definitely. And there was definitely proof in the pudding, excuse the pun. But yes. I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to vilify them in any way. I think they did what they did. They did it through love, and they've gone on from there and now have a family. You can't persecute them for that.
Do you think it was wrong, however, Alan, as a former teacher yourself, to strike him off because he now cannot pursue the profession he loves?
Yeah, I think that's most probably a bit more of wokeism going on here, where people are trying to clear their own conscience by striking him off, and he didn't need to be struck off. I said if she was underage and he'd done something illegal, then yes. But in this case, I don't think he needs to be struck off because he's providing a service. He is a teacher, and hopefully a good teacher. I don't know, but no, he shouldn't be struck off. Not in this instance, anyway.
Perhaps he was listening to the Lord's word. Very briefly, Alan, what did you teach?
Sailing and navigation.
Wonderful. Well, look, I tell you what, it's been a very smooth ride, very plain sailing to have you on the programme. I hope we'll see you again in the People's Hour. Brilliant job, Alan there, speaking to us from Yateley in North Hampshire. Let's now go back to Andrew, who had some internet issues. It's live telly. This is the People's Hour. We don't airbrush anything out of the programme. Right, Andrew, you're back. What do you think about this RE teacher boning one of his students, yes or no?
No, he should not be acting in such a way. As a professional, so I'm a university support lecturer for disabled students, those with autistic spectrum disorder, or as we prefer to say, autism and dyslexia and dyspraxia. We are not allowed to act in such a professional way. He chose to go into the teaching profession. His relationship needs to be outside of the sector, really. If, for example, if myself wanted to become in a relationship with another teacher, that's fine because, you know, we are the same age. And obviously she is a minor. Why is he behaving in that way? You know, there is citizenship. When I was a secondary school teacher way back in 2005, 2006, when I taught ICT and citizenship in a secondary school, I'm not going to name them, it was one of the things about developing a relationship. That child was vulnerable. She was there to be educated by him. And obviously, if she has a disability or not, it's not been disclosed. He could potentially have taken advantage of her. I always take the opinion that you can be professionally friendly with students, especially in the sort of university sector, but there is no relationship. I always say to students, you're here for a study skills class with me. I'm going to look at the impact of your dyslexia, teach you strategies like SQ3R, but there is no relationship. I can be in touch with you after you graduate. You know, you can add me on LinkedIn, but it's highly inappropriate. I think that this man has disgraced the profession. And, you know, why was he going out with someone, you know, half his age and, you know, taking advantage? You know, she's a vulnerable woman, and I just don't think he should be, you know, teaching. I'm sorry. There are codes of conduct. So the Higher Education Academy and also the Institute for Learning have, and this is highly inappropriate.
I guess, well, Porky, let's bring you into this. What's your view about a teacher having what you would describe as horizontal refreshment with a pupil?
I think the most famous issue of this in the world is Monsieur Macron, isn't it, in France? Yeah. Didn't he hook up with his own teacher, who's now his wife?
Correct.
Also, Sting wrote a best-selling single, didn't he? Don't Stand So Close to Me. That was all about when he was a teacher. If I was in charge, what I'd say is this. At the age of 16, a pupil cannot have a relationship with a teacher for 7 years. At the age of 18, no relationship for 5 years. And at the age of 21, that would be a university student, no relationship for another 3 years. That then would keep everybody safe. Because what I'm saying is, if you introduce that sort of legislation, which discourages these sort of relationships, then what you're doing is you make it absolutely clear that it has risks and it's really not right.
There you go. Well, look, what a treat to have you on the programme as well. I've loved every single video call, including Andrew there in Essex, who is clearly a bit of a rock star university lecturer. Thank you very much, Andrew. Have a brilliant night. Well, look, lots more to come because that was an interesting story. Do get your emails in on that, mark@gbnews.uk. But next up, after the break, we've got another topic to discuss in the People's Hour. I'll be joined by the wonderful Sue and Adik to discuss whether we've lost the art of good neighbouring. See you in 3.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you know, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
On Mark Dolan tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate and entertain in equal measure. It's It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me every Friday, Saturday and Sunday for big guests, big opinions and a big presenter. 6'5", don't you know? See you then on GB News.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for the briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, the briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In. Wonderful to have your company and happy bonfire nights. This is the People's Hour, in which the first hour of this programme from 8 p.m. every Saturday is dedicated to your video calls, and they've been brilliant so far. My Saturday sidekick tonight is broadcasting and Fleet Street legend Mike Porky Parry. On to our final story in the People's Hour, and a woman says she's been driven out of her home by her nightmare neighbour, but the neighbour has unfairly been allowed to stay. Nicola Wilde claims that she's been through years of hell with her neighbour, but has feared for her life since the woman started a fire at her door. Nicola says she's pleaded with her Manchester housing group to evict neighbour Nora Ward, but they won't, so she herself has moved 40 miles away whilst she waits. Now, Ward, 62, was last month sentenced to 15 months behind bars for arson with intent to endanger life. But her sentence was suspended for 2 years, so she is still staying at the housing complex. This after an Edinburgh resident enraged locals with this rather colourful pink front door, which those living nearby say clashes horribly with the rest of the houses. So with stories like this popping up all the time, and with distant memories of neighbours back in the day chatting on the street, sharing a cup of sugar, watching their children play and having conversations over the garden fence, have we lost the art of neighbouring? Let's talk to Sue, live from Sandbach in Cheshire. Hi, Sue.
Hi, Mark. Nice to meet you.
Wonderful to meet you. You're in the office. What do you do for a living?
Well, I was a bookkeeper and an administrator, but I will be ending my working career at the 31st of March next year.
Congratulations. Would you like to be the Chancellor next?
I think I'd make a much better job of being a Chancellor than any of the ones we've had recently would do, to be honest.
Get Sue in to balance the books. Now, Sue, what do you think about this? How do you get on with your neighbours?
Well, I've been in this street for 39 years, and I only know the ones next door. And on the other side is the vicarage, and I've had 4 vicars there. The first one was fabulous. The second one, a bit arrogant, I thought. The third one was great. The fourth one, the first 3 were men. This one's a lady. All the others came round as soon as they arrived in the vicarage. They came straight round and introduced themselves. She hasn't done that. She doesn't speak to me if she sees me in the drive or anything. The only time I've talked to her is when I took a parcel round to her, you know, when I collected it for her so she wouldn't lose it. So I think good neighbours are not what they used to be. When I was a kid in our street, I knew every single person. I knew every single person's parents. I knew the old folk. And even when we were little, we'd go and chat to the old folk because they got nothing else better to do than talk to us, you know. You don't get that now. We never used to lock our doors.
Well, I think that's right. Do you think people are just all about themselves these days, Sue? Is it the change in our society, the culture?
Everybody says they've got no time for anything, but I think if you really cared about things, you'd find the time. You know, it doesn't take more than 10 or 15 minutes to make somebody happy by talking to them.
Mike Porky Parry, let's bring Mike in on this because Mike owns more property than Donald Trump. So I guess you're quite keen for your tenants to be neighbourly with each other, are they?
Well, I don't really care as long as they pay the rent. Sorry, that sounds a bit insensitive. Sue, you're talking about an age which doesn't exist anymore. I come from the north of England. I was born and brought up in Chester. And everybody tells you we could leave our back door open in those days. And, you know, the neighbour came in and borrowed a cup of milk or a cup of sugar or something. That doesn't happen anymore. Where I live in more than one place. I don't know the neighbours because I make sure I don't want to know them. I think having a neighbour that you're friendly with brings responsibilities. Like, for instance, a neighbour of mine who knocked on my door once and said, could you help me because I'm getting a new kitchen top in my kitchen, but it's so long, the workman can't get it in the lift and they won't bring it upstairs. Would you come downstairs, please, and help me hum it up 5 flights of stairs? And, of course, I said, no, I'm sorry, I'm just dashing out. That's the problem with neighbours. They always put on you, but you don't want to put on them. I say, stay alone, stay individual. Neighbours, as far as I'm concerned, are not good news.
Sue, what's the nicest thing a neighbour has ever done for you?
The 2 next door neighbours that I've had most to do with, they've just had their house repointed. And I had a phone call from saying, Sue, because you've had to put up with all this dust and mess and noise, we'd like to take you out to lunch. So they took me out for lunch because of that. And to be honest, I said to them, to be honest, I haven't noticed the dust and I haven't noticed the noise either. But they still insisted on taking me out to dinner.
And rightly so. Listen, I think your neighbours are very lucky to have you. So do come back to the People's Hour. Really enjoyed having you on our first programme, Sue. There you go, Sue in Sandbach in Cheshire. Let's go to Addick in Kent now, our final video call of the show. What a handsome devil. Addick, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for inviting me.
Every call has been fantastic, but you're by far the best dressed, including Mike Parry.
Well, dressed to impress.
Definitely. Tell me about neighbours. Have we lost the art of good neighbouring in this country?
I think, generally speaking, with the time passing with the social media, the friends, what considered to be friends, are online friends. It's imaginary friends. You come to home, you open your Twitter or Facebook, you're chatting, you're happy. But that's not real people. Sometimes you even don't meet people ever in your life. So it's artificial cyber friends, real people around you, and you're missing the point. You know, you're driving, you're going on the train, people don't look at you, looking at your mobile phone. Maybe you're missing life of your life if you're looking at someone. So basically, we lost the contact, the connection, the environment, the human touch, what's happening at the moment.
I also, and let's bring Mike in if we can into this conversation. Addick, I just wonder whether we were all safer when we were close to our neighbours, because when you're away, your neighbour is looking out for you and for your property.
Well, that's absolutely happening. When I'm away, my keys are with my neighbours, looking after my property, and if they need, I do the same. So it's essential, specifically if you're living by yourself. So I understand that Mike is not very keen, but it's circumstances. You know, some people have different circumstances in their life. If you have family, if you have more people around, you have friends, you have family, fair enough. But if you're a lone person, circumstances are quite different. So it's at context what is important. And every day, I know that Mike doesn't like to be somebody asking to help. However, my neighbors sometimes did help me with my furniture because they were able to do.
But Adek, I'm sorry, I have to say this to you. You can't start friendly, relationships with a new neighbour because you don't know them. And you know what's going to happen? You get friendly with them, and the first time they have a party that goes on till 4 o'clock in the morning, and the bass beat from their music is bashing through your walls and through your floor, you won't be able to go and see them next morning and say to them, you cut that out.
It might just be, it might not only be music if that's going on, Mike. Adek, thank you so much for joining us. Come and see us again soon as well. And Mike Porky Parry, we bid you a sweet farewell.
Thank you.
But in the end, the bottom line is that society has got more about me.
Oh, yes, well...
People are selfish.
Well, the point is that these days you have to look after yourself. That's my view. You've got to stand on your own 2 feet. The only people who help you these days are the government by giving you more and more money.
Yeah.
We've got to stand on our own 2 feet, and if we have to do that, it means you've got to be an individual.
There you go. Well, there's no better individual than Mike Porky Parry. Mike, can't thank you enough for helping us to make GB News history with the People's Hour. When James, Greg, Tom and myself conceived this idea of the People's Hour, we had no idea it would go that well. Why did it go well? Because of Mike Porky Parry and your wonderful calls. If you want to be part of the People's Hour next week at 8 o'clock, mark at gbnews.uk. After this at 9 o'clock, in my big opinion, is the mental health industry now a cult? See you in 2.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens,
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akua, on Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Every Saturday at 2 o'clock, join me, Darren Grimes, for Real Britain. I'm not afraid to give you a platform and say it how it is. Come on, make the case.
Something like this is very, very important to people.
And we're always up for a laugh on this show.
God, honestly, you'd think there were no problems in the world.
Real Britain, every Saturday on GB News.
On the Mark Stein Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Stein Show.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV.
On radio.
And online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's
News channel.
It's 9 o'clock and welcome to the second hour of Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In. It may be bonfire night, but we've got fireworks for the next 2 hours. In my big opinion, why mental health has become a cult, a religion and an industry. Whatever happened to the stiff upper lip. Plus, after an aristocrat bans a boyfriend from a top society party, I'll be asking in the big question, are unmarried people second-class citizens? We'll be joined by the Hamiltons for that one. In the news agenda with my brilliant panel, does the world need Donald Trump back in the White House? And are dating apps dangerous? Plus, after King Charles revealed he travels everywhere with his teddy bear, what is your most cherished item? And we got the Sunday papers from 10:20. That's right, not 10:30, 10:20, earlier than anyone else. And a full roundup at 10:30. With uninterrupted reaction from my panel. Lots to get through. The big opinion next, but first, the headlines with Ray Addison.
Thanks, Mark. Here's the latest from the GB Newsroom. An investigation has been launched into Cabinet Office Minister Sir Gavin Williamson over messages he allegedly sent to the then Tory Chief Whip. The messages, obtained by the Sunday Times, appear to show Sir Gavin accusing Wendy Morton of using the death of the Queen to, quote, punish senior MPs who were out of favour with Liz Truss's government. The Prime Minister was reportedly told of Ms Morton's complaint before he appointed Sir Gavin as a minister. The Times says the MP has told them he's happy to speak to Wendy. The Immigration Minister has condemned what he calls unacceptable levels of violence at a London immigration centre. Robert Jenrick said those responsible will be held to account and swiftly removed from the country. His comments come after detainees with weapons caused a disturbance during a power outage this morning. No one was injured in the incident at Harmondsworth Immigration Centre in Heathrow. Mr Jenrick also confirmed that detainees are being transferred to other secure facilities while engineers repair any damage. The firebombing of an immigration processing centre in Dover was motivated by an extreme right-wing terrorist ideology, according to police. Counter-terrorism officers have recovered digital media devices as part of their investigation. Andrew Leake from High Wycombe is believed to have thrown up to 3 incendiary devices at the centre last weekend. However, there were no major injuries. The 66-year-old was later found dead by police at a nearby petrol station. Thousands have marched in central London today calling for a general election due to issues including the rising cost of living. The Britain is Broken protest saw a coalition of trade unions and community organisations marching from Embankment to Trafalgar Square. Organised by the People's Assembly, former Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn was among the speakers, whilst protesters accused the government of not being fit for purpose. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister has described inflation as the #1 enemy and vowed to rebuild trust in the government. And in breaking news just in the last 10 minutes, Aaron Carter, singer and brother of Backstreet Boys member Nick Carter, has died aged 34. Los Angeles County Police Department say officers attended Carter's California home earlier, where they found he was deceased. Mr. Carter's representatives confirmed the news, saying they were still trying to determine the cause of death. The US musician had a successful pop career before later becoming a rap artist. We're on TV, online and on DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Back now to Mark Dolan.
It's 9 o'clock. Welcome to Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In. It may be bonfire night, but we've got fireworks for the next 2 hours. Be careful where you put that sparkler. In my big opinion, why mental health has become a cult, a religion and an industry. Whatever happened to the stiff upper lip? That's happening in just a couple of minutes. In the big question, after an aristocrat bans a boyfriend from a top society party, are unmarried people second-class citizens? We'll debate that with the Hamiltons, no less, Neil and Christine. Does the world need Donald Trump back in the White House? We'll go live to Hollywood, California for the Queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield. And in the news agenda with my panel, are dating apps dangerous? And after King Charles revealed he travels everywhere with his childhood teddy bear, what is your most cherished item? What couldn't you travel without? Tackling all of those stories and many more are singing sensation, law student and founder of the OWHL Foundation, Katie Waisel, TV personality and broadcaster Ingrid Tarrant, and commentator and author Narinder Kaur. Plus, tomorrow's papers live and uninterrupted 10 minutes earlier than everyone else at 10:20. I always like to go early. And our reaction and reflection on the papers will be uninterrupted until 11 o'clock. Now, I want to hear from you throughout the show, mark@gbnews.uk. The best bit of my show is when you get in touch. Lots to get through. We don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it, especially on bonfire nights. 2 hours of big stories, big guests, and always big opinions. Let's start with this one. Have we lost our balls as a nation? Throughout history, this country has faced wars, pestilence, economic crises. Our national borders have been under relentless attack for centuries, most recently at the hands of Hitler in the 1940s, when German bombs rained over London. We've had centuries of grinding poverty, famine and deprivation. And until this century, we've been exposed to the full force of nature, without the luxury of Gore-Tex jackets, insulated homes, sophisticated plumbing, electricity and central heating. If you look at historic photos of this country, you'll see Welsh coal miners, faces blackened from 12 hours underground. You'll see kids in Victorian times, dressed in rags, without even a ball to play with, let alone an Xbox. Or you'll see workmen laying down rail tracks, digging tunnels and building roads in the unforgiving conditions of the winter months. The great history of this country, as one of the foremost civilizations on earth, was built on grit and determination, and by tough, hardy and persistent men and women. Fast forward to 2022, when we have all mod cons, the internet, the powerful communication device of a smartphone in your pocket, with the information of the world in the palm of your hand. We have unlimited healthcare at the point of need, free education, law and order on the streets, mostly. Yes, we've had the pandemic. Yes, there is an energy crisis, and money is so tight right now for millions. But most people live a relatively comfortable existence compared to anything we've seen in the past. Historians described the Middle Ages as a time when life was short and brutish. Well, the brutal truth is that right now, notwithstanding current bumps in the road, we've never had it so good. Which is why I'm sceptical about this current obsession with mental health. Politicians, corporations, celebrities and the media have fetishized this issue and potentially exaggerated it in order to turn mental well-being into a religion, a cult and an industry. And who are these proponents of mental health? Well, you've got the likes of Prince Harry, the world's least happy millionaire, moaning about his terrible life as he rattles around his Montecito mansion, which boasts 16 bathrooms. We've had much the same from Prince William, now, of course, the Prince of Wales, who I do like, but who also plays the mental health card, even though he is the second most privileged human being in the country by definition, behind his father, the King. We've had Meghan Markle opening her heart about how no one asks how she's feeling. Now, mental health is, of course, very important, and if you're struggling, including men who tend to bottle things up, you should reach out, and help is there. A problem shared is a problem halved. The spiralling rates of male suicide are as troubling as they are devastating. So if you're in trouble, reach out, help is there. But it's my view that big campaigns like the World Mental Health Day, which we saw last month, are an opportunity for corporations in particular to show how sharing and caring they are. It's yet another example of virtue signalling, and I'm not convinced it helps anyone. In fact, I think that the opposite may be the case, with a generation of young people in particular now being told that they're victims, that their lives are terrible, and that bad mental health comes as standard. As a population, we're being infantilized by this cult of mental health into believing there's something wrong with us, even when there isn't. And it troubles me because it comes at the expense of serious mental illness, like bipolar disorder. Before people are told en masse that their mental health is so fragile, perhaps we should establish a few ground rules. Perhaps we should manage expectations about the challenges of life itself. By wrapping people up in cotton wool and effectively creating a sort of mental health hypochondria in which you just assume there's something wrong with you, we should explain to young people that, in fact, life is just difficult. It's not easy. There is pain. Negative emotions are like the weather. They come and they go. You have sunshine and you have rain. This rush to diagnose everyone as depressed has proved to be a money spinner for the pharmaceutical industry, my favourite people, as you know. You go to your GP saying that you're feeling down. What's the first thing they do? Reach for the prescription pad. In 1991, 3% of Americans had taken medication for depression in the last month. By last year, it was 23%, almost a quarter of all Americans medicated for depression. A recent meta-analysis into depression medication determined that 15% of depressed patients treated with an antidepressant experienced a short-term benefit. The remaining 85% who were exposed to the adverse drugs did not receive any benefit beyond placebo. Some studies suggest that drugs just don't work. So before you pop any pills, here's my suggestion. Have a look at some key aspects of your life which are controllable, and after that, call yourself depressed. How much sleep do you get? Do you get your full 8 or 9 hours? Do you take drugs? If so, stop taking them straight away. The widespread normalization of cannabis, for example, is the elephant in the room when it comes to mental health. If you're getting stoned on a regular basis, don't come crying to me about being depressed. It's just the same with alcohol. Now, don't get me wrong, I love a beer, but alcohol, whether we like it or not, is a depressant. If you're drinking a lot and regularly, it will affect your mood. So ease up on booze, keep it occasional, or quit it altogether, and your mood will lift. Practical issues are intrinsically linked to mental health. So is your money situation in chaos? Are you struggling with that? No amount of medication from the GP will pay your credit card bill. Again, there are organisations that can help with that, so reach out. How much sunlight do you get? How much fresh air do you get? And what about nutrition? If you're eating plenty of fruit, vegetables and well-sourced animal protein, that's like a happy pill. Plenty of water and eggs, meat, fish, green veg, a great diet will undoubtedly boost your mental health. If you're hoovering up Deliveroo consignments of McDonald's, if you're such a regular customer at Greggs they know your name, if you're a bit of a sugar monster, changing that is an easy win, and I'm sure you'll feel better. Now, counselling should be a big part of the NHS and deserves investment. And if it's a profound medical issue like the actual chemical balance in your brain, which no amount of good nutrition or an early night will fix, then of course science may have the answer. Similarly, anyone that has suffered trauma or abuse from childhood or later in life must receive the very best intensive treatment. As far as I'm concerned, it's money no object. But we've got to stop telling everyone, particularly young people, that they're depressed even when they're not, that they're victims even when they're not. Life is the greatest blessing, the greatest privilege, the greatest joy. But it hurts, and it's tough. It's a grind, it's a drag, It's relentless, it's exhausting, it's cruel, and it's intermittently very, very sad. Rather than understanding and accepting that, we're burdened with crazily high expectations about how great our lives have got to be and how happy we've got to be all the time. And we're becoming self-obsessed, fueled, of course, by social media, for whom me, egomania is the business model. If Twitter is messing with your head, or newspapers, or even the nightly news, then give them up as well. By the way, you only get good news from me. Feeling sorry for ourselves has become a national pastime. Profound and deep support for those with real mental health issues is essential. But for everyone else, pull your socks up, get your life in order and soldier on. Whatever happened to the stiff upper lip, a now underrated British quality, which has seen us prevail through history's greatest challenges? Grow up, man up, and get on with it. You've never had it so good. Lots of you will disagree. If so, then drop me a line right now. mark@gbnews.uk. I'll get to your emails shortly. But reacting to my big opinion monologue and all of the big stories of the day, our singing sensation, law student and founder of the OWHL Foundation, Katie Waisel, TV personality and broadcaster Ingrid Tarrant, and commentator and author Narinder Kaur. Katie, let's start with you. First of all, welcome to Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
Thank you for having me. Wow, what a plethora of information to digest. And, you know, one of the real big takeaways of, just for me personally, from what you were saying is absolutely first and foremost, if anybody is struggling or suffering, there are a plethora of helplines. You know, the first one that comes to my mind is the Samaritans. Yeah. Absolutely. Just take that deep breath and make that phone call and just know that you're not on your own. No matter how big or small you may feel something may be, or other people may have an opinion on, you're just not alone. And sometimes when you are navigating something that you may not necessarily have even an awareness of, an understanding, that itself can be so consuming and overwhelming. So that, first and foremost, absolutely agree with you. I will say, though, that I've spent a lot of my time recently with the OWL Foundation, the OWHL Foundation, which is my charity protecting people in the creative industry sector, really connecting with people online, such as Twitter and TikTok and social media and just in general. And what I have noticed is that the next generation of these amazing human beings that are openly speaking and sharing and questioning, searching for answers, that are also speaking out about mental health support and the importance of it. It's an interesting kind of like comparison to how I would even say my parents' generation, for example, that would typically, you know, say like, fix up, it's okay, you know, it's not as bad as perhaps it may be. Each to their own, but I think that the underlying crux of the matter here is we're all different, we all communicate differently, and that we shouldn't, I guess, in my opinion anyway, pigeonhole or box away or not be open to understand or want to understand somebody else's situation in a generation and generations moving forward that say quite some time ago that it wasn't in the right context. So even though the context back then, you're right in saying that they didn't have a ball to play with or things like this. We evolve as people, we evolve as a generation.
And I think everything you said about those struggling, and even if it seems a minor problem, and I'm not saying that people shouldn't communicate or reach out. In fact, I think everybody should reach out every day. But I just wonder whether it's the commodification of mental health and, you know, making people feel like they're a victim when, in fact, what it is they're having a bad day. You know, it's about expectations. I just wonder, if I was in a classroom, I would say to kids, listen, life is difficult. Accept that as the norm. That's the baseline.
But why? I say that to my children. I've got teenage children and, you know, they'll have bad days and they'll go on social media and there's some influencer that's having anxiety. I say, that's normal. it's normal to feel sad. It's normal to feel happy. It's normal to feel down. It's normal to have anxiety. It's normal to have fear. It's all healthy. There's nothing unhealthy
But they talk about
feeling down.
But
It's
they
normal.
talk about it openly, and it wasn't normal. Back in my day, it was the stiff upper lip.
Well,
You
it
know,
still is a stiff upper lip, isn't it? My
I don't
parents
think
were like
so.
that. It was
Yes,
like,
I know, but not this generation. I think they're much more open to it. And
But
I'm really
young
depressed.
aren't young people being sold a lie, which is that you're supposed to be happy all the time? And if that's your attitude, you'll never be happy.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what they're really being sold, junk food. And it really stems from there because actually I think a lot of these children can't control their emotions. ADHD, depression, neurological disorders from the colouring.
I think the phone, scrolling on the phone, I feel...
Well, that's what I
it's
said.
a combination of
That's what I said in the big opinion, which is that, OK, if you're eating junk food, if you're drinking 8 pints a night, if you're getting stoned every day, don't come crying to me about the fact that you're depressed.
But maybe
eliminate those things. And
Maybe
if
they're
it's still not right,
self-medicating.
But they can't help it because they are lured by it. Sorry, what did you say?
I was just saying, maybe they're self-medicating. And, you know, and also what's really interesting, just kind of listening, is what you were both saying came from two very different standpoints. Because you said, well, if I was teaching a classroom and I would say, well, that's just life. That's you, which, you know, sure, but that's you telling kids
superimposing
that's what life is.
Telling them how to deal with it.
Whereas you're saying, in a general way, oh, well, if you're feeling or if you're struggling this, you're trying to normalise that we all feel that way.
I think it's very wrapping up in cotton wool, which you so rightly said, and I think we've wrapped them too much in cotton wool.
But then what about the boys? I've got a son, and sometimes he's a teenager, and I see he wants to cry, but he can't cry. He's a young man, and I want to say cry. It's normal to. So you're saying wrap them up. We shouldn't do that, but
we
for
shouldn't,
men,
because
it's so important to express themselves. They feel they've got to be a man. They've got to be strong.
But they've
we can't
never
cry.
properly expressed themselves. Do you express yourself?
Mark does. He went on and on and on.
No, but this is opinion.
I do about 10 monologues a week.
Yes, no, but when it comes to personal, do you?
Yeah, I do, and I try to talk to my Mrs. Dolan, my partner, and also friends, and I think that letting off steam, venting regularly is good, rather than the pressure cooker where it explodes.
Yeah. But you're from the world of comedy.
Yes.
So...
Which is, I guess, a relief valve as well.
But most comics are very depressed. And it's a mask.
Yeah.
Have you got kids?
Yes, I got 2 kids.
And how old are they?
They are 13 and 18.
So as teenagers, how do you cope with
what I do is I think that I do ask them how they are, right? And I always ask these active questions like, are there any problems at school? Because you know the problem is if you say is everything all right, they'll just say yeah, and they'll give you a monosyllabic answer. So I'm fishing for answers and for information.
And are they more likely to talk to you than they are to their mum about being boys?
Yeah.
Are they?
Yeah, they are.
Interesting.
What I'll do is I'll be saying, you know, are there any problems at school, any issues? Is anyone being unkind to you? The teacher's all right?
Yeah.
So I approach it that way. But what I also do, Katie, is I just try to help them understand that if you're feeling blue, that will be a passing emotion, that's what life is.
And it's hormones at that age.
And I just wonder whether too many young people, especially when they look online at other people's lives, have these expectations which predetermine them to be unhappy.
But then they've got people around them. They're not just looking online. They've got their friends and they realise, well, actually, my friend's going through that.
Yeah, but they're all looking at that same social media, so they're just feeding off that same thing.
And when you're talking about mental health, though, again, yes, in the bigger picture here, it absolutely falls into play where mental health, there is, just in my personal opinion...
and it's important to point out, you've been treated very badly in the world of television, and you've had your struggles, and you've been through a lot. So, you know, you're well-placed to push back on some of the elements of what I've said.
Right, and I appreciate you saying that as well. And I'll very openly share with people that, you know, I'm still in PTSD therapy and, you know, and I am very pro therapy and counselling and things like that, and trauma.
It's funny, Katie, that you mentioned counselling, because I know when Mark mentioned it, you seemed happy about that. I had counselling after my brother passed away, and it did not help. It was rubbish. I'm sorry. Counselling, all of that. Antidepressants did help.
Right. Yeah.
But counselling.
Oh my God, I've
didn't
never
help.
been to counselling. I've never had antidepressants.
Have any of you tried...
Going for a run works the best.
Well, I was going to
Yes,
suggest...
I did crunning, which is
running's
cry
good.
running.
I was going to suggest gin. I don't know if you know it.
Oh, I love gin. It's going to the river.
But that's
very
Mum's
well.
ruin.
Hang on, guys, can we just say, Katie said she's done crunning. So you run and cry.
Yeah, but wait, before I did law school, I'm the health and fitness and wellness specialist, and I focus on pre- and postnatal women, but something that really helped me was just eliminating this expectation of we have to be happy to work out. And instead, I just said, I'm going to put on the saddest song, and I called it crunning. And just come and crun with me,
That
where
would
you just
do
cry
nicely.
and run.
I'm going to try that on Monday.
Yeah.
I'm
Do
going
it,
to crunning.
do it. I always cry when I'm running, let me tell you, because of my knees. But that's a very interesting debate. What do you think? Has mental health become a cult, a religion, or must we take all issues of mental health deadly seriously? Let me know your thoughts. Mark at gbnews.uk. Coming up in the news agenda with my panel, does the world need Donald Trump back in the White House? We're going to go live to Hollywood, California, and speak to the Queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield. Katie's not having any of it, but what do you think? Do you want the Donald back? We'll discuss that. Also, are dating apps dangerous? And as it's revealed, King Charles travels everywhere with his beloved childhood teddy bear. What is your most cherished item? But next, in the big question, are unmarried people second-class citizens? We'll debate that with none other than the Hamiltons. See you in 3.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio,
and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel, Britain's
news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome to Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In. A big reaction to my big opinion monologue. Has mental health become an industry? Well, look, strong views on both sides on this one. Some agree wholeheartedly, others not happy with what I've had to say. Stuart says, Mark, why are you linking drinking and smoking cannabis so strongly to depression? The majority of people who suffer do not drink or do drugs. You have no ounce of empathy in your mind or body. Stuart there, not happy with my take on it. Well, it's all about opinions, of course. We're here to spark a debate. Malcolm says we've stopped bringing up children with coping strategies. If you look for it, you will find it, says Malcolm. How about this from Rick? When you're low, think of lovely things like bright copper kettles and warm woolen mittens. Brown paper packages fed up with strings. These are a few of my favourite things. So Rick there suggesting a bit of positive thinking would be the way forward. How about this from George, who says, Dear Mark, I am 83. I've had many problems. Life is good and it's a privilege to have experienced it. It's an insult to people with serious depression that others who are just fed up say they have a mental health problem. That's from George. I'll get a few more out there because it's been a really interesting debate so far. Many emails coming in to mark@gbnews.uk. Mark, says Audrey, I'm so tired of celebrities and their constant bleeding heart. Take on mental health, speaking without qualification. Just because you have money doesn't make you the expert. Gary, Mark, you've upset me tonight. I have physical health issues, but also anxiety and depression. I'm not making it up. Believe me, for over 30 years, I've asked for help. Poor support, totally. I have few friends, family, only got extended family who don't want to know. I feel very alone. Well, look, Gary, let me tell you that as per my big opinion, you are somebody that qualifies for mental health support. You're struggling, and that's, for me, what the NHS is there for, and I do hope that you are able to get the help you need. In the meantime, let me just say that I'm here for you to keep you company, and do drop me another email, mark@gbnews.uk. Thanks for setting the record straight on that one. Eileen says, great opinion of yours, Mark, on mental health. Not just another bigoted view from an all right Jack. You have no idea, says Eileen. And last but not least, David, who says, Mark, you're spot on with your big opinion. Mentioning mental health issues is unchallengeable, just like the global warming lobby. You're supposed to accept it without any challenge. There are a lot of people making a good living promoting these perceived issues, and far too many weak-minded people. There you go. Well, that's what the show is all about. It's a broad church, Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In. Thank you for the emails agreeing with me, and especially thank you for the emails that don't. No one gets cancelled or censored. Not on my watch. It's time now for this. It's time now for the big question, in which we tackle a major news story of the day. And tonight, a top aristocrat has been breathing fire in a furious Instagram post. The ex-wife of Sotheby's chairman Lord Dalmeny, Lady Caroline Dalmeny, has been left raging after she was told she could not bring her boyfriend to a top society event, as they're not husband and wife. With boyfriends and girlfriends often excluded from other events, including weddings and christenings, and subjected to crippling capital gains taxes if one of them dies, are unmarried people second-class citizens? To debate this, I'm delighted to welcome British power couple, the Hamiltons, Neil and Christine Hamilton. Of course, Christine, a best-selling author and broadcaster, and Neil is a former Conservative MP and now the leader of UKIP. I'm also delighted to welcome dashing single man and TV personality, good friend of this show, Ryan Mark Parsons, and social etiquette expert, Elaine Swan. Elaine, I'm obliged to start with you because you are the social etiquette expert. I want to be polite. You're joining us live from California. Do you think that unmarried people are second-class citizens?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that unmarried people are second-class citizens, but I can say in some social circles, depending on what's going on, they're put down at the bottom of the rung. It just depends on what type of event is going on, but there definitely are some key places where they can be left out.
Yes, I think the problem is, Elaine, sometimes when people are planning a wedding, their view is that they don't want to pay for someone's boyfriend to eat all of the food and get drunk. He'll probably be gone in 6 months anyway.
Yeah, I think that's the way a lot of people see it. Their thing is, we don't want your friend that you met on Bumble or Tinder or Tinder or what have you, that you probably won't see later on. We don't want that person in our forever photos from the wedding. And so I think that's why they're not always as welcomed as married couples.
Yes, Ryan, Mark Parsons, when you get married, which is just a matter of time, I know they're forming an orderly queue. Will you invite boyfriends and girlfriends?
Yes, I will. I think it's actually quite narrow-minded and a bit regressive to treat unmarried couples as second-class citizens. I think when it comes to weddings, of course, whoever's organising the wedding can have their guidelines in place for the guests. Perhaps a year together might be a good recommendation, a good starting point for guests attending. But I don't think it should be prerequisite that married couples are the only people allowed to attend. I'm 22. I take a very modern approach to life, as with a lot of my friends my age or similar, and I can say the majority actually don't want to get married. And if you look at the stats, since the 1970s, there has been a 50% decline in opposite-sex marriages. And I think that says everything. People don't want to get married, nor do they need to get married.
However, don't you think, Ryan, Mark Parsons, that married people are proper couples? They've made a legal and spiritual commitment to each other.
Yeah, I understand legal implications of a marriage, and of course it's a spiritual thing as well. But there's so much diversity in the world, and we should be celebrating that. And I think saying that if you're not married, you're therefore second class is very restrictive and very backwards, and I think a very thick approach to your outlook in life in general. If that's what you honestly think, if married people are somehow above people that aren't married, you need to take a step back, a look in the mirror, a breather, and actually realise that you're pretty dumb if you have that point of view.
Neil and Christine Hamilton are with us, the ultimate Uber couple. Neil, I've got a female friend, very fond of her, but she gets through men like you wouldn't believe. And I'm just sick of meeting new boyfriends.
Yes. Oh, you're talking to me? Oh, sorry. I'm not used to speaking without my wife's permission, of course. But
Rubbish.
But there it is. No, well, I rather agree that if you've got a private party, you really want to know who you're inviting to it, and if you have a couple that you only know one part of it, really, and the other is just somebody who's a fly-by-night, then it's a bit of a risk, isn't it? But I wouldn't say that the unmarried people are second-class citizens. Nobody's going to make that claim, I think. But I do think that in our own personal lives, we do want to know who's going to come and stay in our house, or who's going to attend a party, or whatever. I think marriage is a great thing, of course. Although I didn't really have much choice in the matter. I didn't make a proposal to Christine. I had an ultimatum from her, and there it is, and we're still together 40 years later.
And I'm pleased to hear it. Christine, I think that unmarried people are second-class citizens, certainly in the eye of the law and in the view of the taxman, because if you're not married, if your boyfriend or girlfriend passes away, you'll be clobbered by HMRC. So the authorities certainly consider unmarried people lesser.
Well, I think it's in the case of Caroline Dalmeny, it's a question of was he a boyfriend or a partner? And she seems to have taken this incredibly personally. Well, I don't think it was personal. If you're organising a social event and numbers are limited, whether it's a wedding or whatever, I think you're perfectly entitled to prioritise the people who've made a commitment. And I have no idea how long she'd been going out with this fellow. Maybe a couple of months. I mean, in which case I think she's overreacted. We know Caroline; she's a very feisty, sparky lady, so I'm not surprised she's gone over the top. But yes, I mean, the tax system does encourage marriage. Well, what's wrong with that? Because all the statistics show that families bring up children, they're more stable, the children are, generally they're happier, they're healthier, they're better educated, etc., etc. All the statistics show that children are better off in a stable married relationship. But nobody's suggesting that they're second-class citizens. Marriage is not for everybody. It happens to suit us, but my goodness, not everyone, no.
I'm glad it suits you, Christine. Spare me the gory details. It's a family show, but I know you have a very full marriage. But Christine, should we encourage marriage by making people who are married even more privileged? Because that's certainly how it was in Victorian times. I mean, you just wouldn't get by in society if you didn't have a ring on your finger. Do we need to go back to those times where it really is an upgrade to have tied the knot?
No, we certainly don't want to go back to Victorian times, but in Victorian times, if you were having children out of wedlock, that was seriously problematic, and you would probably end up in a very poor situation, if not in the workhouse. So marriage was definitely to be encouraged in those days. And I would encourage it now. If people want to start a family, I would suggest they get married. It's not obligatory, and I'm not laying it down for everybody. I don't really care what other people do.
You only lay it down for Neil.
For the sake of the stability of society, it is much better that people form long-term committed relationships. And as I said, all the statistics show that if you've got the legal bond, you are more likely to stay together. You are more likely to stay together through the bumps that are bound to be there on the road. Life is not a bed of roses.
Neil, before I come back to Elaine and Ryan Mark, can we talk about the political aspect of this? Because it's good for the country, isn't it, when people get married? It creates a stable society and supports the idea of the nuclear family. I don't mean, husband and wife and 2 kids. It can be a gay couple, you name it. But the principle of marriage is a pretty stabilising force in any society. Do we not miss that?
Yeah, well, marriage, of course, developed organically from the days when we were just living in the middle of nowhere, and marriage developed as a social unit for mutual protection and support, and that is what marriage should be. Obviously, today we have very fluid relationships, and marriage isn't what it was. It's very easy to get married. It's very easy now to get divorced too. And so to that extent, of course, the legal construct within which we all operate is very different from what it was even 50 years ago, let alone 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago. But I do believe that making some kind of a legal commitment is a good thing, because if you've got any kind of sense of responsibility, you consider this before you enter into such an arrangement, and you certainly consider it before you dissolve it. And yes, I do think that the law should give certain privileges and advantages to being in a married relationship, not least because, as the old-fashioned Church of England wedding ceremony said, the principal purpose of marriage is for the procreation of children and to bring them up. And I think that's a very serious matter. One of the problems that we've got in the modern age is that stability isn't there for too many children. And there are lots of social complications that arise from that unfortunate development.
Yeah. Elaine Swan, what would you do as one of the world's leading social etiquette experts if you're planning an occasion such as a wedding or a christening? What is the criterion with which you invite people? Are you looking for married people only? What do you think about Ryan Mark's idea that they've got to have been together for a year, perhaps demonstrating some evidence of that?
Well, it really just depends on the couple and the person who's hosting the event. The invitation should have more to do with the relationship that they have with those individuals. And so if you've got a great relationship with married people, then of course invite those folks. If you have a really good relationship with someone that you care deeply for, and they just so happen to not be married, and maybe they're going to bring along a date, and you want to offer them the chance to be able to share this occasion with someone that they care for, then by all means you can invite them. I wouldn't put a time frame on it. It really has more so to do with the bonding of that relationship. And if you met someone yesterday and you feel like they're your forever person and you'd love to bring them along to this particular occasion and the host is okay with it, then I say go for it. But, if not, and you really want to give thought to who's going to show up, what they're going to look like in your photos, and how they're going to get along with everyone else, then of course, definitely give that some extra thought. But allow your relationship with the invitee to determine whether or not they should have that +1, as opposed to are they married or are they not married. It really has more to do with your relationship with them.
Elaine Swan, I need you in my life. There you go, you've fixed it. Ryan Mark Parsons, your closing thoughts on this as a young, eligible man about town.
Well, I would just say that I'm certainly not looking right now, and I'm just perusing, I'm just enjoying life and going with the flow. It's very laissez-faire. But listen, if you want to get married and you want to settle down, I think that's a very special thing. I'm not denigrating that in any way. I love marriages. I love going to weddings occasionally, depending on where they are. But the thing is, if you see someone who isn't married, I don't think you should place a label on that person or that relationship. I usually say 1 year and then it's serious. A lot of my friends are in and out of relationships, but I don't actually care unless they've been with that person for at least a year. And I think if you can apply that to other scenarios, then all will be fine. But definitely don't differentiate people that aren't married versus those that are married, because I think ultimately it's down to the individual, their personal relationship with that other person, and that's the crux of the value of that relationship at the end of the day.
Check out the expertise in the field of social etiquette from world-renowned expert Elaine Swan. That's with 2 N's. And my profound thanks to dashing single man TV personality Ryan Mark Parsons and the ultimate British power couple Neil and Christine Hamilton. Thank you, folks. Your reaction mark at gbnews.uk. Are unmarried people second-class citizens? At 10:30, we've got the papers uninterrupted and live. And don't forget, in my take at 10, a TV comedian has torn woke millionaire hypocrite Gary Neville a second backside. Well, I'll do the same in my take at 10. You won't want to miss that at the top of the hour. But next, does the world need Donald Trump back in the White House? We'll discuss that with the Queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield. See you in 3.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panelists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
On Mark Dolan tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate and entertain in equal measure. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me every Friday, Saturday and Sunday for big guests, big opinions and a big presenter. 6'5", don't you know? See you then on GB News.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for The Briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, The Briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
In my Take a 10 at the top of the next hour, I'll be dealing with millionaire woke hypocrite Gary Neville. But it's time now for US News with the Queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield. Hi, Kinsey.
Mark, what a great new Saturday show. I love it. It's a thrill to watch. Congratulations.
Well, look, you've just made it better. You've upgraded by joining us at 9:45 every Saturday, Kinsey. And let's talk about a prize fight that's in the offing. Donald Trump in the red corner versus Kate Middleton in the blue corner. What's going on?
Oh my gosh, and I have to tell you, Mark, I'm a little bit on Team Kate with this one because she's our girl. She's our girl. We absolutely adore her. These are tweets that Donald Trump originally sent out in 2012. Kate Middleton is great, but she shouldn't be sunbathing in the nude. Only herself to blame. Now, we are hearing in Christopher Anderson, here's another one. Who wouldn't take Kate's picture and make lots of money if she does the nude sunbathing thing? Come on, Kate. Now, these are tweets that are coming back up because of a book called The King by Christopher Anderson, where he talks about how Prince William, Prince Harry, and Prince Charles at the time, now he's the king, went into a tirade, a profanity-laced tirade over these tweets. They were so angry that Donald Trump had the audacity to comment on Catherine at the time. But this was so, remember my favorite Donald Trump tweet that he's never seen a skinny person drinking Diet Coke, by the way, that's hilarious. But that was just his MO at the time. He tweeted about pop culture. He tweeted about current events. And that's really how he made a name for himself. So I'm not surprised he did it. But in this situation, I'm going to have to side with the royal family. She was a sweet girl. I don't think she meant any of that to happen.
I completely agree. And she can do no wrong in my eyes. What a dignified and beautiful young woman she is. She'll be a great queen one day. Let's talk about Donald Trump. Is he serious about heading back to the White House? I understand he's dropped his biggest hint that he'd like to run for president in 2024.
Well, that's the thing is, could we be seeing a King Charles and President Donald Trump standing up next to each other? Could we see them in the same room? How are they going to engage with each other? Because Charles was so upset about those tweets that they discouraged Trump from coming in 2017. They didn't want, or there was a potential trip, and they did not want him to come in 2017. So are they going to have to face off, president and king? Will we see that? I think that a lot of people are curious. But yes, Donald Trump has been vigorously campaigning for our midterm elections, and you are seeing him everywhere. You're seeing him in Arizona. You're seeing him in Iowa. We know that this is a very smart businessman. He doesn't do anything for free. There's got to be something in it for him, all of this campaigning. And I think ultimately it's because he plans to run in 2024, and he needs these candidates that are hopefully, in his eyes, going to be elected to back him in that campaign.
Well, he couldn't do worse than creepy Joe Biden when he's not sniffing children's hair and giving sex advice to female teenagers. Listen, America reaches peak woke. Take a look at this, Kinsey.
I'm going to be teaching you how to use frogs, pronouns, and sentences, so let's go.
Yeah, that's it. I'm Republican now. You win. I'm done. I can't do it, right? I'm accepting, tolerant, inclusive, right? Whatever gender you want to identify as, binary, non-binary, but not going to call people frogs. We draw the line at amphibians, right? You can't identify as a frog because you're not a frog, right? You know that, though.
Ribbit.
I would just like to state for the record that I identify as a size 2, although I'm not. But yeah, that is an actual video on TikTok. It's much longer. She goes into detail about how you're supposed to discuss a person that identifies as a frog. I think 99.9% of people will refuse to do this. However, there is an entire, if you Google this frog gender, there is an entire rabbit hole you can go down. Unfortunately, I did so this AM. But I'm sorry. I guess I apologize on behalf of the United States of America because there are a lot of morons here.
I'm afraid so. And it's a very familiar syndrome, which is somebody that's a formerly left-leaning Democrat saying, that's it, I'm going to vote Republican because I've had enough of this woke bollocks.
You're seeing a lot of that right now, Mark. You're seeing a lot of people saying, why are we fixated on these issues that, you know, it's heat or eat here too in America. It's I can't afford to go to work because gas is so expensive. And so you're seeing a lot of people go, you know what, I think you're just distracting me with some of these things. They're just distractions. I mean, Joe Biden having Dylan whatever in the White House to sit back and to talk about trans rights. I mean, I'm confused as to why he's not telling us what he's going to do to improve the economy. What are your plans?
That's what we need to focus on. Kinsey, we'll see you in a week's time. What a thrill to have you on my brand new show. The Queen of US Showbiz, Royal and Political Reporting, Kinsey Schofield. In the next hour, at the top of the next hour in my Take at 10, I'll be dealing with millionaire woke hypocrites Gary Neville. And we got tomorrow's papers. See you in 3.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akue, on Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today.
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Every Saturday at 2 o'clock, join me, Darren Grimes, for Real Britain. I'm not afraid to give you a platform and say it how it is.
Come on, make the case. Something like this is very, very important to people.
And we're always up for a laugh on this show.
God, honestly, you'd think there were no problems in the world.
Real Britain, every Saturday on GB News.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England, Scotland, Wales,
And Northern Ireland.
On TV.
On radio.
And online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
It's 10 o'clock. Welcome to Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In. Wonderful to have your company. It may be bonfire night, but we've got fireworks for you this hour. In my take at 10 in just a moment, woke millionaire hypocrite Gary Neville gets a taste of his own medicine. I'll be dealing with him shortly. In the news agenda with my brilliant panel, are dating apps dangerous? And after King Charles reveals he doesn't travel anywhere without his childhood teddy bear, what is your most cherished item? We've also got the Sunday papers from 10:20 and a full roundup at 10:30 with uninterrupted reaction from my panel. Lots to get through. Gary Neville's on the way, but first the headlines with Ray Addison.
Thanks, Mark. Here's the latest from the GB Newsroom. The Immigration Minister has condemned what he's calling unacceptable levels of violence at a London immigration centre. Robert Jenrick said those responsible will be held to account and swiftly removed from the country. His comments come after detainees with weapons caused a disturbance during a power outage this morning. No one was injured in the incident at Harmondsworth Immigration Centre in Heathrow. Mr Jenrick also confirmed detainees are being transferred to other secure facilities while engineers repair any damage. The firebombing of an immigration processing centre in Dover was motivated by an extreme right-wing terrorist ideology. That's according to police. Counter-terrorism officers have recovered digital media devices as part of their investigation. Andrew Leake from High Wycombe is believed to have thrown up to 3 incendiary devices at the centre last weekend. However, there were no major injuries. The 66-year-old was later found dead by police at a nearby petrol station. An investigation has been launched into Cabinet Office Minister Sir Gavin Williamson over messages he allegedly sent to the then Tory Chief Whip. The messages obtained by the Sunday Times appear to show Sir Gavin accusing Wendy Morton of using the death of the Queen to, quote, punish senior MPs who were out of favour with Liz Truss's government. Rishi Sunak was reportedly told of Ms Morton's complaint before he appointed Sir Gavin as a minister without portfolio. The Times says the MP has told them he's happy to speak to Wendy. Thousands have marched in central London today calling for a general election due to issues including the rising cost of living. The Britain is Broken protest saw a coalition of trade unions and community organisations marching from Embankment to Trafalgar Square. Organised by the People's Assembly, former Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn was among those who spoke, whilst protesters accused the government of being not fit for purpose. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister has described inflation as the #1 enemy and vowed to rebuild trust in the government. And Aaron Carter, US singer and brother of Backstreet Boys member Nick Carter, has died aged 34. LA County Police Department say officers attended Carter's California home earlier on today, where they found he was deceased. Representatives for the star say the cause of death is not yet known. The pop star opened for the Backstreet Boys on a number of occasions and had a successful solo career. We're on TV, online and on DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Back now to Mark.
It's 4 minutes past 10. Welcome to Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In. It may be bonfire night, but we've got fireworks for you this evening. In my take at 10 in just 1 minute's time, woke millionaire hypocrite Gary Neville, we'll talk about Gary Lineker as well, gets a taste of his own medicine. More on that shortly. I'll be dealing with Gary Neville in just a moment. In the news agenda with my panel, are dating apps dangerous? And after King Charles reveals he doesn't travel anywhere without his childhood teddy bear, what is your most cherished item? Tackling all of those stories tonight and many more are my brilliant panel of singing sensation, law student and founder of the Owl Foundation, Katie Waisel, TV personality and broadcaster Ingrid Tarrant, and commentator and author Narinder Kaur. We'll also have the Sunday papers from 10:20 and a full roundup at 10:30 with uninterrupted reaction from my panel. Now, I want to hear from you throughout the hour. Mark at gbnews.uk. Lots to get through, but let's start with my take at 10. The halo has slipped for St Gary. No, not Lineker this time, but another football icon. Ex-Manchester United fullback Gary Neville, Keir Starmer's best friend, a man who champions workers' rights and equality for women. How unfortunate, therefore, that he should sign a reported 6-figure World Cup commentary deal with beIN Sports. Now, who are beIN Sports? And it's not a shoe shop that sells Nike trainers, it's the state-owned channel of the Qatari government, a government which presides over rules in which being gay is a crime, punishable by up to 3 years in prison, and one which has a male guardianship system in which women are dependent on men for permission to marry, travel, pursue higher education and access reproductive health care. The brilliant Ian Hislop tore this ex-footballer a new backside on Have I Got News For You last night. Take a listen, it's gold.
Either highlight the issues and challenges in these countries and speak about them, or you basically don't say anything, you stay back home and don't go. And I've always said we should challenge them.
There's another option. You stay at home and highlight the abuses. You don't have to go and take the Qataris' money.
Ouch. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. This is the exact same eye-watering hypocrisy as we've seen from the ultra-woke Gary Lineker, who considers himself to be politically to the left whilst battling with HMRC to reduce his tax bill. Then there's the rainbow flag-wearing David Beckham, who has received millions to be the face of the World Cup and its hosts, the wretched and medieval Qatari regime. Nice work if you can get it. Neville and Beckham are as bad as each other, as they demonstrated in a recent so-called documentary in which Gary Neville interviewed David Beckham about his new role as the face of the World Cup, without once mentioning the issue of women's rights, the treatment of gay people, or the appalling conditions in which those stadia were built, causing multiple injuries and the reported loss of 5,000 lives. Neville has said he will continue to campaign on those issues, and to be fair, he absolutely has done so in the past. But as Hislop says, the best thing he could do is boycott the World Cup and make a statement. Instead, he takes money from this despicable regime. Football is one of the most hypocritical industries out there, and the likes of Neville are its worst proponents. This is an own goal for the woke Gary Neville. This multi-millionaire socialist loves to wave the red flag, but it's time someone showed him the red card. Your reaction, am I too hard on this Manchester United legend? Let me know your thoughts, Mark, at gbnews.uk. Reacting to that and all of the big stories this hour, including tomorrow's papers at 10:20, is my all-star panel. And we've got singing sensation, law student and founder of the Owl Foundation, Katie Waisel, TV personality and broadcaster Ingrid Tarrant, and commentator and author Narinder Kaur. Narinder, quite a moment there on national television. Gary Neville, I guess, getting the accountability and comeuppance he deserves.
Yeah, he's been colonised, hasn't he, by who's getting paid by. And he kind of was kind of smug. He didn't even say, actually, hands up. You're right, you got me there. He kind of just like kind of smirked as if, well, it's OK, the money's coming in. And he's just a hypocrite, and no one likes a hypocrite.
No, they don't. I mean, that's the problem, isn't it? If he didn't posture and do press conferences with Keir Starmer and become a very political character, then he'd be all right. It's like, hey, you're earning a living, knock yourself out. But you can't be woke and take money from a regime like Qatar.
No, it's disgraceful, and I think that actually he should say something about that. He's going to take the money. We'd all take the money, I'd say so. But you're right, he shouldn't be then sitting on Twitter talking about we should be fighting for this, we should be fighting for that, and this is wrong, and this is wrong. No, Gary Neville, you're wrong.
No.
You're a hypocrite.
We should not be going out there playing football. It starts at the stem, you've got to cut it off at the legs. Because if he doesn't do it, somebody else will. Yes, it's being hypocritical and he's taking a shed load of money, but we are out there and somebody has to represent the team and somebody has to do the commentary.
So
Why
you're
not?
saying he should do it?
Yes.
What?
Only because somebody's got to be out there to do it. We should not be sending the team over in the first place. We have to look at our box.
But then why have Gary there? We shouldn't have Gary there. Because then it should be somebody else that isn't so, oh, yes, this is wrong, this is right. Why send him? He's
virtue
he's having his cake and eating it.
No. He's saying all those things. He's saying all those things because you have to do that. That's kind of like the politically correct thing to say.
Yeah, but then he shouldn't take the money.
You know there's a middle ground. No, we shouldn't be going out there full stop.
There's a middle ground, absolutely, and I on board both of your sides of this, but anybody that is in the public eye absolutely has a responsibility to speak up and out on issues, and especially those of human rights, and push forward for positive change and be that.
But then go to a country and then take the money where they're going to imprison people.
No,
people for being
you're right.
No.
Ian Hislop was right that he can do that from here. But the thing is, he's going there, and maybe he can see it for himself, and maybe he can get kind of a grassroots thing. I don't think the team should be going there in the very first place.
That's a different argument, Ingrid. That's a different
it's
argument.
part of
We're
the
talking
argument.
hypocrisy.
No,
he
if
is
they
a
weren't there,
hypocrite.
Because he knows what's happening.
Then somebody else is going to do it. Anybody else will do it. It's not just him. You can call him Gary Neville, you can call him Mr. X, you can call him Ghostbuster Man, you know, but...
Ingrid, I think you're missing the point. Anybody else could do it. Ingrid, you're missing the point.
But they will do it. They will do it, so it doesn't have to be...
And if they don't do it, then somebody else is going to do it. So I understand from both sides, and I think that this is an absolute imperative and really important opportunity for the teams, for FIFA, for everybody to come together, to unite, to really make sure that change happens.
Well, maybe nobody should be going to Qatar at all, not just the British football team. Maybe that should just be wiped off for
But then
those
hang
very
on,
reasons.
can we just say Qatar? Maybe that's their law, that's their life, that's their...
And that's another thing. It's a cultural thing. We were, you know, it wasn't long ago that women had no rights at all for an education. They had to have permission to marry from their father. They couldn't go out on their own without being escorted. They could never be with a man on their own.
But that's their culture, that's their religion.
Yes, and it was ours at one point, and it's still theirs. So what right do we have to say...
But Gary doesn't have a right, because he's the one who goes on about right and wrong.
But
and
we're
then he's
going on
gonna take his
about
money.
contradicting
But we're going on about it ourselves, of saying this is absolutely appalling, because it's not what we're used to. That is not the way that we live, thank God. But the thing is, we wouldn't want them coming to us and saying, your skirts are too short, don't have your tits showing and stuff like that.
No, but that's
because
the
our
point.
culture allows us to be
We're
like
talking
that.
about Gary Neville, who goes on about right and wrong, and then he's taken the money and gone to a country that we think is wrong.
I'm hoping he
he's a
speaks up
hypocrite.
and out.
Katie, what do you think? I mean, that's a point made by Ingrid there and also hinted at by Narinda. Who are we to tell these regimes how to conduct themselves?
Well, you know, just in my personal opinion, and somebody that really respects and understands the importance of your words on, again, social media sites and the absolute, I stand for and by human rights, regardless of any regime, what they want to say. I think that every life matters in that respect of human rights and fighting for the cause for a better way. 6,500 people lost their lives. It was absolutely disgusting and disturbing. But as we were just saying before, Gary Neville has been speaking out so publicly about his personal thoughts and feelings, yet is completely contradicting so far. I mean, who's to know, maybe when they get out there that he's actually going to speak up and stand up and try and make change.
Getting paid.
You know,
he's never going to. He's going to go and give him a hug.
Well, I think what's going to happen, he's going to bottle it and he'll say, oh, I'm going to give the money to charity.
Oh, yeah, probably he will.
Too little, too late, Gary Neville.
Exactly.
What a
I
brilliant
believe that
debate. Well,
too.
my panel will be back at 10:30 for reaction to the big stories of the day. But next, in another big format change in this programme, we go to the papers 10 minutes before anyone else on the national television and radio airwaves. That's right, we've got the papers at 10:20. That's 10 minutes before all of the others. And we'll do so in the company of top Fleet Street former newspaper editor Paul Connew. It's the papers next. See you in 3.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio,
and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News. Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart. And I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Well, a big reaction to my take at 10, in which I've been drawing attention to ex-footballer Gary Neville's hypocrisy, very left-wing, very woke, and then he goes and takes a lot of money, a reported 6-figure salary from the Qatari state-sponsored broadcaster to commentate at the World Cup. You can't have it both ways, Gary, and that's very much the view of David, who says on email, "Well said, Mark. It's time these millionaire champagne socialist footballers were called out for their absolute hypocrisy." And says Neville and Lineker are just two of the many rich socialists who talk left but live right. Nicely put, very poetic and very penetrating, Annie. Linda says, "Mark, you weren't hard enough on Neville and co. The woke brigade's mantra seems to be do as I say, not as I do." I think that's a fair point. Anne, Mark, I agree with Ingrid on the fact that we should not be going to the World Cup at all. As for Neville, he's a hypocritical arsehole. Wow, you're not pulling your punches tonight. Who knew? But listen, no one gets censored on my show. Not on my watch, folks. Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In is the home of free speech. Last but not least, Jane says 2/3 of the screen taken up by warring women shouting at each other. And I only have eyes for your various expressions, Mark Dolan. I'm glad I record your show. I'll watch you again in the morning. Jane, thank you so much for your kind words. And what a great panel we got tonight. They are feisty, and they're back at 10:30 with all of tomorrow's papers. But let's have a sneak peek now. Let's have a look at the Telegraph. And we've got the following headline. Hunt plots £10 billion tax grab from better off. Middle-class workers face paying up to £10 billion more in income tax as Jeremy Hunt, the new Chancellor, considers drastically reducing the relief they currently enjoy on their pension contributions. The Chancellor of the Exchequer is in discussions over changing tax rules designed to encourage employees to save into their pension pots, rejecting a George Osborne-era plan that was ultimately abandoned after objections from Tory MPs. So there you go, clobbering the middle classes. And extra bank holiday will mark the King's coronation, say the Telegraph. Hooray for that. And the Independent, protesters demand general election now, as reported by Ray in the news bulletin. Thousands marched through London today calling for a national poll and help with the cost of living crisis. That group in that photo don't look like they've done a serious day's work in their lives. And migrants deported from places of worship. Immigration enforcement officials are targeting places of worship to advise people with insecure statuses to go back to their countries of origin. I've got more papers to come, but let's get an early reaction from Fleet Street and the former editor of the Sunday Mirror, a very old friend of mine, Paul Connew. Hi, Paul.
Good evening, Mark.
Good to see you. Let's talk, if we can, about Jeremy Hunt's black hole. How do we fill it?
I think Jeremy Hunt is still working on that, along with Rishi Sunak. I think we've actually got two chances at the moment. Actually, the man who is Chancellor and the man who used to be Chancellor is now Prime Minister, but in some ways I think is shadowing Jeremy Hunt. Although I am pleased that we've had several U-turns from Rishi Sunak, but I'm glad at least he is going to COP27. Although I suspect that is spooked by a certain Boris Johnson. But anyway, I think we're all playing this guessing game. I'm not sure, though, whether the stories aren't being planted about certain radical decisions looming in Jeremy Hunt's fiscal statement in order that when some of them don't materialise, people will go, God, thank God for that. So you've got to be careful that there isn't a little bit of over-planting, a bit of overspin in order that when it happens, it's going to be pretty drastic without a shadow of doubt, but it might not be quite as draconian as the strategic leaks are suggesting.
There you go. Could they be playing mind games with the public? God forbid, Paul Connew. How about the front page of The Independent? Protesters demand a general election now. You've broken some of the biggest political stories in the country over the last couple of decades. Could you get your crystal ball out? When do you think Rishi Sunak goes to the country?
When do I think he should go to the country? It's my own question. I think he should go very, very soon. I think the public deserve a general election. And the polls suggest, ignore for a minute the march yesterday, or earlier on today, rather. I just think the public deserve a general election. And the polls show that they demand it. But there's an old saying, as we all know, turkeys don't vote for Christmas, and I certainly don't think prime ministers lagging 25, even 30 points behind in the polls are going to be rushing there.
Well, yeah.
So whether it'll go through till January 25, which is the latest date, or more likely it's going to happen in 2024. But I think it should happen much, much sooner, but I'm not holding my breath.
What's your best guess as to when? Because it won't look good, will it, if Sunak waits till January 2025? I'm wondering about spring, perhaps May 24.
I think that's not a bad bet, actually, or maybe September 2024, just after the summer holiday break. But of course, what's interesting are there are moves afoot by some Boris Johnson supporters in the Conservative Party to change the 12-month rule, so that if Rishi Sunak was ailing way behind in the polls, say next summer or late summer, that the so-called prince across the water could be back, as Tory leader. That'd be a nightmare scenario. But the fact there are plots to try to actually change the rules is quite interesting, because we now know that Boris Johnson did get just over the 100 votes barrier that would have allowed him to stand. But although I'm told from very reliable sources that the problem was that about 25 or 30 of those Tory MPs told him their support was conditional, and that if it was way behind Sunak on MP support, that they would withdraw their own backing because they didn't want it to go out to the membership. And so that left Boris with little choice but to not withdraw, because he never officially announced he was running, but to decline to even enter the contest.
Well, I tell you something, Paul, you've put the cat among the pigeons there. Paul Connew, a legendary former newspaper editor, not ruling out the possibility that Boris Johnson is the leader of the Tory party in advance of the next general election. Paul, I know you'll be joining us for that sneak peek at the papers on a regular basis on a Saturday, so I look forward to seeing you again in the very near future. The brilliant Paul Connew. Lots more to come after this. All of the papers with full panel reaction. See you in 3.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
On Mark Dolan tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate and entertain in equal measure. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me every Friday, Saturday and Sunday for big guests, big opinions and a big presenter. 6'5", don't you know? See you then on GB News.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for The Briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, The Briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In. It is a brand new 3-hour extravaganza. At 8 o'clock tonight, we made GB News history with the People's Hour, taking your video calls. It was an absolute treat. So if you want to be involved and become a star on this programme, then do email us, mark@gbnews.uk, and we'll put you on the show. That's the People's Hour, 8 till 9 every Saturday night. At this time every Saturday, of course, it's the papers, and it's the Sunday papers, which is extra juicy. So let's have a look first at the Sunday Times, and they are leading with the following. Exposed, the global hacking network that targets VIPs. Indian gang accessed emails of leading politicians. Outspoken critics of Qatar World Cup were victims. Well, that'll be me then. Philip Hammond, Chris Mason from the BBC, Michel Platini, the former chief of FIFA, Ignacio Cassis, the Swiss president, and Mark Fulbrook, Liz Truss's chief of staff, all considered and rumoured to be victims of a hacking scandal. And that is a very, very concerning story there, particularly anyone that speaks out against the Qatari regime, seemingly having their collar felt by spies in Qatar. Williamson's threatening texts create headache for Sunak. Number 10 refused tonight to say if Rishi Sunak had confidence in Sir Gavin Williamson. After it emerged, he sent threatening and expletive-laden texts to a female colleague. Williamson, who was brought back into government as Cabinet Office Minister by Sunak, lashed out at Wendy Morton, the Conservative Party's first female chief whip, last month amid unfounded claims she excluded him from attending the Queen's funeral. Meanwhile, Twitter founder apologises to staff and says, "I love all of you." Twitter's co-founder Jack Dorsey apologised today to the social media company's employees and said he loved all of them, but added, "I don't expect that to be mutual in this moment or ever." Last week, the social media company announced that half of its 7,500 staff would be fired only days after Elon Musk bought the business for £44 billion. Dorsey, who's thought to be worth more than $3 billion, tweeted that he was grateful for everyone who's worked at the company. Next up, The Sun on Sunday, World Cup shock. Three Lions ace in match bet probe. Three Lions ace Ivan Toney is at the centre of a match betting probe. The £50 million Brentford striker is being investigated by Football Association officials over allegations of wagers placed on games. Toney, who's 26, is widely expected to be in England's squad for the World Cup in Qatar, which starts a fortnight today. The Sunday Telegraph, Hunt plots £10 billion tax grab from Better Off. Middle-class workers face paying up to £10 billion more in income tax as Jeremy Hunt considers drastically reducing their relief on pension contributions. Also, ambulances arrive more than 2 days late, and extra bank holiday will mark the King's coronation, say the Telegraph. Sunday Express, Rishi's extra bank holiday for Charles. New PM hopes country will come together and celebrate. And my director, Faye, is whooping in my ear. She loves a day off, does our Faye? We love it when she has a day off, I can't lie. She knows I'm joking. We couldn't do without her. Also, Kate Middleton reigns in the rain at the rugby. The Independent, protesters demand a general election now and migrants deported from places of worship. The Observer, nurses across the UK vote to launch strike action over pay, and novice staff making key asylum decisions. Well, I think you'll find novice staff are running the country.
Yes, exactly.
Sunday Mirror now, abuse victims' message to ITV, and I'm very keen to hear the thoughts of Katie on this shortly. How can you let monster Boy George in the jungle? A man handcuffed to a wall by Boy George today slams the pop star's £500,000 I'm a Celebrity deal with ITV. Auden Carlson is haunted by the 2007 ordeal that landed George in jail. He says, "I still see the monster that he is every time I see him. It's hurtful that ITV give him a platform." Let's have a look at The Observer. I think we've done that one, Greg. I can't lie. But let's cover one more story on the front page of The Observer, and it's about Barack Obama, who today in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, addressed the Democratic support, the grassroots, begging them to support his party during the midterm elections. It does look like it's going to be a Republican landslide. And the Daily Star Sunday, creepy crawly exclusive, cockroach. This one, no, not this one, pointing to a photo of Matt Hancock. Beware of the cockroach. Bug farts are destroying the planet. There you go. There is a brilliant coalescence of two stories, which is apparently cockroaches are causing global warming. And, well, what is Matt Hancock giving us? A collective national headache. And those are your front pages. Let's get reaction now from my brilliant panel. Singing sensation, law student and founder of the OWL Foundation, Katie Waisel. TV personality and broadcaster, a very old friend of the show, Ingrid Tarrant. And another brand new friend to the show, commentator and author Narinder Kaur. Loved having all of you for the first hour and a half. Let's sink our teeth into tomorrow's papers. And let's talk, shall we, about this hacking scandal in the Sunday Times. Ingrid exposed the global hacking network that targets VIPs. Now, these are people like Chris Mason, who I'm a big fan of. He's the political editor of the BBC. and you've got Michel Platini. You've got people that have been critical of the Qatari regime who appear to have been hacked. That's a big worry for our democracy.
It is. But also, we've forgotten to mention that only just a few days ago, Liz Truss, her phone was hacked.
Correct.
So...
Who's Liz Truss again?
Yeah, exactly. Can you miss her?
She was that really interesting, exciting character. She was so exciting.
Well, this is going to turn into Bananarama of a drama, I have to say, because there's too much of this now going on. Phone hacking, it went back with the celebrities, but now on a political level, it's very, very sensitive. We've got the Chinese, we've got the Ukraine war, the Russia war.
And this is an Islamic
Don't get
country.
defensive.
No, but they're
I'm
saying
joking.
Indian gangs. What's Indian gangs got to do with an Islamic country? I'm very confused
Correct,
about that.
unless the hacking has been outsourced, because...
To Indians.
I wonder, because we know that Chinese hackers have been helping the Russians, for example, so I'm not sure, but you're right to raise that question about what would the connection be between India
I
and
didn't
Qatar.
understand why they said Indian hackers, but I was going to take it... Carry on, sorry. This was really annoying me. The rishis, the bank holiday for a king that still carries his teddy bear around. I don't think we need another bank holiday. I am absolutely furious. I'm sorry, Faye.
Oh, I disagree.
A bank holiday for a king.
It's a historic moment.
No.
I do think we have to do this. This is...
We lost enough money in this country. We can't be doing with another bank holiday.
We will make money out of
we've
this.
had 2.5 years of bank holidays in lockdown.
All right, we'll swap a bank... I know. All right, forget that. We have to just write that off. Everybody had a bank holiday the world over. This is a historic occasion. It really is, and I think it's wonderful for the younger kids to see it, to witness it. I'm looking forward to seeing it, and it is. Anyway, I'm a monarchist. I do like
I'm a
it.
royalist. I am, and I agree. But we can't be doing with another bank holiday. We had 2 years of a lockdown. The country suffered enough. The economy's on its knees. We can't be doing with
Perhaps
this.
it's not a forced lockdown, because actually, with the funeral, of course, was, because that was paying absolute respect when on the day of the funeral. But this, maybe it's a choice. But, you know, the pubs, it would be so lovely. I think people need to get together. I think there's a loneliness. The winter... Actually, well, it's not going to be. It's the 8th of May. It's the 8th of May. Oh, I'm going now doing a spoonerism. But even so, I just think it's a nice way for people to get together.
Are you excited to see King Charles and Camilla there? I feel a bit, I don't want Camilla there.
No, it's the occasion. It doesn't matter who it is. This is our king. This is the next phase. We're you know, I just think it's...
Isn't it an opportunity, Narinda, to celebrate our country, for all the people to get together in the way that they did at the funeral of the Queen? You know, something to unite us and to give this guy the best possible start.
Oh, he's had enough best possible starts. I've had enough, actually. And I love the Queen, but even that went on and on and on and on. And I know I do. I love the Queen, but she was remembered for Paddington Bear. Now this one carries a bear around. I just, like, there's got to be more to this royal family. There's got to be more things then. King Charles, you know, he wasn't the best of husbands. He wasn't the best of dads. And I don't know what's to celebrate. I'm sorry.
No, it's the occasion. This is our next monarch. This is King Charles III. I think we should.
Well, I wonder what King Charles will have to say about the former Metropolitan Police Officer Nick Del Rosso appears to have provided the gang, back to the Sunday Times, with the targets for at least 40 of the cyber attacks. So I wonder what Prince Charles would think about this.
What he'd think about that, right. And also, just picking up on that point about why India, and apparently one of the gangs that has been doing this hacking is based in a major tech city in India. So it seems like there's a lot of expertise there. So if you want to do hacking...
What's the former Metropolitan Police Officer Nick Del Rosso giving these people information, which is obviously, like, top secret? It goes against so much.
You're a lawyer. You're in training to be a lawyer. Will we ever get on top of this hacking and, you know, the very insecure world of information in which we now live?
You know, I think that the real great key to change is change the law and legislation, because people can't enforce law if it's so archaic and Jurassic and clearly hasn't not worked so far.
But how would you enforce
people.
this? They're hacking. So how would you say naughty?
Well,
you can't
it goes
hack,
against...
because it will always go on.
It goes against the Human Rights Act and rights to privacy.
But they don't care. It's not going to stop it.
Right. Well, unless it's actually laid out properly. The law, and again, this is my personal opinion, but it reminds me very much of one of those old school textbooks when you're at school and you pull out and it's got all of these past pupils' notes scribbled on it. and it's kind of falling apart. We live in a very different world these days as back then.
Well, it's so
and it needs to be right, exactly, with technology.
Well, it's always
There's been so
happen.
many advancements.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I start talking about, and I've been dying to talk about this, I think nurses should strike.
Yeah, this in The Observer.
Why are people so
Nurses
mad?
across the UK vote to launch strike action over pay. I understand the issue with nurses who have been continually underpaid. However, Narinder, if they go on strike, people will die.
Look, and they can't live. They've got bills to pay, they've got kids to feed, they've got mortgages to pay. Nurses should strike. And I'm really confused why people go mad about people striking, the rail strikes. Why are people mad?
Because
they want to pay their...
No, I'll tell you what's going to happen, because if they strike and if all these people are asking for more wages, everything is going to go up proportionally and we will end up being no better off. So the increase that they had before, actually they're saying now that they're actually 20% worse off, even though they had an increase of 2%. Well, of course, because that's inflation. And actually all these people going on strike are driving that inflation up.
So they just have to suffer forever then?
We
just
all
because,
have to suffer.
Well, that's the Bank of England's fault.
I mean,
so
they should really freeze it.
Maybe
I
they
tell
should
you
just
what
sell
should
the
happen.
place that they set up. Remember the Nightingale Suite? They just sell that and then
they've all gone.
They never used it.
Yeah, that was such a total waste
big waste of money.
And that is where actually they should have the increase, but we can't afford it. But what we can't afford to do is keep throwing money at the NHS system and all the people along in the admin side of it that are not doing the job properly. More
well,
goes
a lot
to
of people
that
don't
than
do the job properly. The PM didn't do the job. Elizabeth,
right?
No,
I know,
one does
but
their job properly.
this is an institution that has gone on for years and years. And if
Nurses
it's to be
deserve to
sustained,
strike. I'm sorry, they should
deserve
strike.
more money.
Yeah, they
but
should
I
strike.
don't think they should strike because I think it's going to create a bigger problem in the end.
I stand by the nurses.
And can we
I do. I 100% do. But I don't stand by the
What
people
about
running
this
the NHS.
issue, though, that the cupboard's bearing? Which budget do you take that money out of? Policing, schools? This is the tough decision that the Chancellor's going to have to make now, isn't it?
Right, exactly. But isn't it crazy that there is but one sum that so many different people have come in over the years to try and finagle, I don't know what you would call it. I don't understand why they can't see past the end of their nose. If there isn't a way, then make a way to make it better, because that's their job.
No, but they're not doing their job. It's a Tory government, and they just want to help their friends and make loads of money. They should be windfall taxes, energy companies. Oh my God, how much?
They don't even have a full-time job. They're on a contract. You don't even know if they're going to be there in a few years' time. Their jobs are on rotation.
I mean, Rishi Sunak, as Chancellor, did introduce a windfall tax on energy excess profits. It's about 60%. So, you know, the issue is that a lot of those taxes are international. It's their international income rather than what they make here.
Yeah, but they're not properly cross-pollinating. I think the NHS actually has to be taken in complete isolation, and you strip it back to the bare bones and you see where the waste is going on. And there is enormous waste, even in the prescriptions alone. People on repeat prescriptions that actually don't need them anymore. And
do you not think people are living longer?
But there's an idea for people are living longer, but an idea from Ingrid, which is that you just find the money for the pay rises from the existing NHS budget.
Yep. Has to be done there. You can't cross-pollinate all the other things because it's not going to work. It's got to work within itself.
Well, there's a story here that says ambulances arrived more than 2 days late.
I know, that's disgusting.
2 days later.
Well, let's talk about that straight after this. We also are going to raise the subject of online dating. Some very troubling stories there. Is online dating, are those dating apps dangerous? Do we need more protection? And also, as Prince Charles, King Charles now, of course, revealed that he goes everywhere with his beloved teddy bear, what luxury item couldn't you live without? Lots more to come from my brilliant panel, including more newspaper front pages. But let's have a look at this. A 24-year-old woman admits she sat out the front of her ex-boyfriend's house until they rematched on dating app Bumble. Yes, indeed. It worked as they ended getting up married. It begs the question, are dating apps dangerous? Let me correct the wording of that. She sat outside the front of her ex-boyfriend's house. So, I mean, that is borderline stalking, isn't it?
It's borderline. It is stalking.
I would have done that for the love of my life.
But that's a very different thing. She knew him. It wasn't somebody that she fantasised about.
But
they had
she
had
knew
a
him from ages
relationship.
ago.
Yes, they'd had a
Then it was
relationship
after
for
that.
18 months, I believe it was, wasn't it? And then situations, geographical and so on, caused her to come apart. But she never got over it. And the thing is, it takes two to tango. And they did get married, and he would have proposed to her. He thought it was fate, and it was fate. Maybe he's been a little bit duped, but actually, I find that quite romantic in that situation. I think dating apps
I'm a matchmaker, and they go on the dating apps, and then they come to the matchmaking service.
Wait, do you run a matchmaking service?
I work with the matchmaking, yes. I'm a matchmaker for the South Asian community.
That's incredible.
And they call us and they say, we're sick of the apps. Now, the problem with the apps is there's not enough checks. You don't know who you're talking to. You don't know if they're telling you the truth.
And
Whereas
that's
if you
a
come
potential danger,
and when you come to a matchmaking agency, we source, we find out, and we find out as much as we can.
Right.
And it's way safer. If you're trying to find your Mr. Right, go to an agency, because they will do some of the checks that you will not get on the dating apps. Dating apps, you don't know nothing about this person. Yes, I'm a matchmaker.
And you have that password, don't you, at a meeting point. I can't remember what it is now. If you go to a pub, they always say it's best to arrange to meet in a
I say more checks across the whole on social media, period. I feel like there needs to be more
verification.
Checks. Absolutely. I believe that everybody should be verified. They have the right to their own identity, but through a security process, almost like when you go and get a job, they have to do like a DBS check.
Yeah.
I absolutely believe that
So
there
if
needs to
you're
be
on
more
Facebook or if you're on Twitter or you're on a dating app, perhaps you have to scan your driver's license.
Absolutely. I would absolutely say
but you could still somebody else. I'm sorry, that's
but
still a little bit too loose.
Well, there was, we can't even trust people,
But you can't find out everything about everyone, though. That's the thing. That's
Exactly.
just
I mean,
too much.
unfortunately, like, the horror of the horrific and awful story with Sarah Everhart and with the police officer, and unfortunately, it is devastating that people can be like that. But and that was somebody that we would expect to trust. So. We can only but do as much as we can to push forward, making sure that we secure, because I guess, or that follow through. So say, God forbid, something happened and you'd met somebody on a dating app, and God forbid something happened. Like, where's that trail? How do you then find that person?
But can I just say something? I think we've got to get a little bit of perspective here, because how often have you heard about some dreadful, like, ending in sort of like a death murder or whatever?
It's not reported enough. It should be reported more.
Well, I don't know
in the
about
press.
that.
Sorry, not people. I just want to correct myself. I don't want to come across
think
as that way.
Freaked out about Sarah Everard for about 3 days, and then we moved on.
I mean, there are a lot more reports of the press.
I think the press would pick up on something like that.
No.
Very, very much.
They want to mislead you with a cockroach story.
No.
However, is there a flip side?
But mostly because they will also report how people have met on these dating sites and have ended up very happily married. And that's the positive. I think there are more positives than there are negatives.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think this is the point, Katie, that I would raise, which is that, yes, checks and balances. On the other hand, the simplicity and freedom and accessibility of these apps is transformative for a lot of people.
Right.
It's uncomplicated. You just put your email in, create a password.
It's actually quite hard, because when you go on the apps, you've got to put a live face in, and if that's wrong, they won't let you go on it. There is a lot of checks on it, but it's as.
But don't you think that if you do too many checks and balances, it loses its simplicity and its openness?
But it's necessary.
It's not organic. Meeting someone in a bar is organic.
But also, don't you think
don't know about them?
I understand you're a top matchmaker, and I'm sure it's better. I'm sure it's better your way, but
you still can't guarantee safety.
No,
and security.
exactly. I say that
you can't guarantee safety, and also for the majority of people, these dating apps probably have been positive. I would have thought.
No, when they phone the agency, they are so exhausted, and so
exhausted from what? Shag?
From the from the left. That guy goes through, the girl goes through. They talk to 4 or 5 people at the same time.
No, I went on Tinder.
But they're on a mission.
I went on Tinder.
That's what you're saying about the shagging.
It was like a stampede.
I want to go on an app.
In the end, I had to lock the front door.
Oh my! Yeah, they're all waiting for you outside your house, right?
I put my back out.
Oh my God! But Mrs. Dolan was just like, "What is going on?"
So you're not having these dating apps, really? Do you think we should get rid of them?
No, not at all. It's still fun.
Yeah.
Youngsters can use them. Married people are using them. They're pretending
Have you
to be
ever
single.
used any of you ever used a dating app?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
Now listen,
absolutely.
you as a rock superstar,
I didn't get that far.
you have to hide your identity so that you don't get these, you know, gold diggers and.
Well,
all that?
apparently Ben Affleck.
Oh, they're just going to find pennies.
But what about Halle
But then
Berry?
you-
Did she go on
Ben
it? She said-
Ben Affleck was on the dating app and he was chatting to people.
You're kidding me?
Yes.
And wasn't Halle Berry on there as well?
Yeah,
She
they
said
were
she
We're
was
human
one
beings at the
famous
end of
for
the day,
one
and
of the
human beings, they thrive off of the
So
connectivity
how was
between
it
people.
for you, the dating app?
I mean, it was interesting. It was.
You didn't put your full name on because otherwise they'd Google you and they'd know that you were a star.
Yeah, I wouldn't go as far as... Well, I don't think they put your full
were you
name
like
on
Katie
there.
W or something like that?
No, I just...
Princess Kate.
Oh my God, no way!
Kate Whiplash.
Can you imagine?
Kiss me, Kate.
Oh my God, that's
People
so
not
embarrassing.
Linda.
I've got bright red.
Naughty Naz. Mark, have they not
All
used...
coming out now.
I'm so embarrassed.
Mark, have they not used your face? My face is...
I've been catfished.
Yes, I've been
catfished.
Apparently my face does not make the cut.
Oh, I don't
wouldn't
believe that.
We don't believe that.
I'm with you on that. Why wouldn't I?
But, you know,
Can I
I'm not
change the subject
against
to
them.
Boy George?
Yeah, let's talk
Because
about Boy
I
George.
think we need to talk about Boy George. Now, Katie, you were really disturbed about this, weren't you?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, first and foremost, of the nature of the incident that took place. I'm just putting this up here, but also that.
So he kept.
While you're getting it, where's my phone? Because I want to read an email out about Gary Neville.
Oh.
There you go. You
sorry.
carry on. So, Boy George, tell me more.
Yeah.
So he kept this boy hostage, handcuffed to the central heating. But the central heating was off. I don't know.
But he was okay. Just before we go into it, though, like I always will have to say that you know, I like to, as I'm sure you guys do, is deal with the sensitivity to the victim also, because,
of course,
you know, the nature of this.
Do you know, he's bringing this up again and taking advantage.
Is he?
Of course he is. It's so obvious. So why would he suddenly come out of the woodwork? It's because it's an opportunity to do that and to be out there again.
Or maybe he's
But why
trying to
not?
protect people. Maybe he's trying to reshare his
I'm
story.
sorry. I find this actually really awful. I do. That was dealt with all those years ago, and I just feel
So
that
he's
he's
not
taking
allowed
advantage.
to talk about it again just because it was dealt with. He's a victim. He's allowed to say, "Hang
Yes,
on a
he
minute.
is.
How
but
was he allowed on TV?
I think he's
when he-
doing double victim. I really, really do. I
Okay.
think he's actually enjoying this.
Well, you know
I
what we
would
do?
far rather.
We end the show as we started it, with disagreement, which is why I've loved my panel so much. This brilliant email from JJ Robinson, who says, Mark, you're the hypocrite with regards to Gary Neville. You're having a go at him and Lineker because they're not Tories. Well, look, it's all about opinions.
what?
Thank you for yours. I'm back tomorrow at 9. Andrew Doyle's next for Headliners.
Looking ahead to tomorrow's weather, and the UK will be unsettled with rain across the southeast and a band of heavy showers approaching the west. Here are the details. Across Scotland, it's a bright start in the far east. However, a band of showers already across the west will arrive during the course of the morning as winds strengthen. It's a drier picture across Northern Ireland with sunny spells and scattered showers, these most frequent in the west, some eastern areas remaining dry. After a bright start, a band of blustery showers are crossing the Irish Sea early Sunday, arriving during the course of the morning. Looking at North Wales, a band of showers continues to push eastwards, with some heavy and possibly thundery bursts in places. Dry initially across the far east, with temperatures in single figures. The East Midlands starts Sunday rather cloudy, perhaps with some mist and fog patches, particularly across Lincolnshire, with this lifting into low cloud during the morning. A few sunny spells in the far west. It's a rather cloudy start across much of East Anglia, with showery outbreaks of light rain and drizzle slowly clearing eastwards, temperatures reaching into the low to mid-teens later. It's a wet start across the south and east of the country, with outbreaks of heavy rain slowly easing eastwards during the morning, drier and brighter the further west you go. The rain and cloud across the southeast will clear as a band of blustery showers push in from the west. And that's how the weather is shaping up during tomorrow morning.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akua, on Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today.
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun every Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Every Saturday at 2 o'clock, join me, Darren Grimes, for Real Britain. I'm not afraid to give you a platform and say it how it is.
Come on, make the case. Something like this is very, very important to people.
And we're always up for a laugh on this show.
God, honestly, you'd think there were no problems in the world.
Real Britain, every Saturday on GB News.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales
And Northern Ireland. On TV.
On radio and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Ray Addison in the GB Newsroom. Members of the Royal College of Nursing across the United Kingdom have voted to strike over pay in their first ever national action. More than 300,000 were balloted, and although counting is still underway, RCN officials believe they have the votes required to support industrial action. That could be scheduled to take place before Christmas.